Well, hey, good morning, everybody. Hey, give me some feedback. I'm trying some different speakers for the live streaming, and I wanted to get some feedback on the audio, how the audio sounded. I had some music playing at the intro. I don't know if you could hear it or not, or how clear it was, but I'm trying some different little speakers here instead of my big booming speaker to see whether or not I might be able to play a little bit of music while we're doing these live streams. That would be awesome. Also, I'll say good morning real quick to Emma B. And Emma is at work right now, so incredibly dedicated. And good morning to Favored One as well. And good morning to Scott Raber. Hope I'm saying that correctly. Scott Raber, great to have you here. And we are going to be checking out a post-World War II Japanese clone machine today that was branded Dressmaker, and specifically as a model SAMB. And it comes with a pretty impressive size motor. It's a 1.5 amp motor. And when this is correct pronunciation. Yeah, you can tell it's speakers. As long as you could hear the music, that's a step forward. What I've been battling now is trying to get some sort of music background. I love music when I'm doing stuff like this, and I know you do as well. And we get kind of a fun little mix of songs that we'll listen to. But I've been having trouble with this new live streaming camera. It's a Razer Pro, which is supposed to be top of the line. And but when I turn on music, it just goes nuts. It goes crazy. So if the audio is good, then that's great news. That's part of the battle. And I initially started this live stream this morning, and Christine jumped on right away from Canada, and I had audio, but I had no video. So I had to just got a text. Hold on. I had to reboot, and you have to go through all the screens. If you've ever done live streaming before, there's about 6 or 7 screens in setting it up and all the information you have to type in order to restart it again. So it's not super easy if you have a glitch at the beginning of a live stream to be able to just, click a button and just click a button and you're back, going again right away. You got to do a little dancing in order to get a live stream restarted again when there's a glitch like there was this morning. So any of you that started to step into it and you were excited and it's like, yes, and then all of a sudden it's gone. I wasn't messing with you. Christine from Canada, probably wondered what's going on, because I can hear something, but I can't see anything. So, but that's isn't that the beauty of technology? Even when you invest in some of the best technology, I've got a 5G network that powers our live streams. I've got a real nice Hewlett-Packard laptop with an i5 processor in it, which is supposed to be super fast. And then I invested in a full HD Razer Pro live streaming camera. So I've got the best of the best along with this great machine too, but I can still have glitches and problems, can't I? I can still have glitches and problems in spite of that. So we just have to try to move forward as best we can. Hopefully, that's the last of the glitches right now, and we'll be able to check this machine out today. And this machine belongs to Erin Allan out of the beautiful state of Vermont. And she picked this machine up with the idea of, oh, good morning to Sunny as well. Good morning, Sunny. She picked this machine up with the idea of wanting to save it. It doesn't have any clear provenance. It's not a family heirloom. It's not, you know, it didn't belong to mom or grandma or anything like that. This is one of those machines that she saw in a local antique store, I believe she said. And she right away loved it, loved the look of it. It's got a really unique and pretty color to it. What color would you call that? I'm just curious your take on it as you're looking at this machine. I've got my own ideas on maybe the color that I would call it, but you know, that said and done, what do you think? What color is this machine? And that really is the cool thing about what the Japanese did with machines post World War II is they would take normal machines. This one actually has the body style of if you've ever seen me present it, it's called the oh gosh, what is it? Elna 2468. I want to say it is. That's also supposed to be either a Japanese or a Swedish type machine, but it's going to have similar features. They've got this cool little red light right here on the faceplate, so you know right away. Oh, my light's off. Oh, it's on again. It's off again. Oh, on, off, on, off. So, so yeah, they put their own little touches on the machine, don't they? They add little things like this, and they add some other badge marking. And as I was getting ready for this live stream, the one thing that I noticed right away, yeah, I agree with Sunny. That's kind of what I was thinking as well. It's kind of a peach color, isn't it? It's a peachy looking color. And there's probably others that would call it something else. Do I Christine said I laugh like her brother. That's pretty cool. Christine, I feel like I'm part of the family. Just so you know, I feel like I'm part of the family. So, but yeah, I mean, and again, my apologies to Christine. Christine is the only one I saw in the live chat that when I did this initial startup this morning and I had that video glitch. But these machines, they add their own touches. And as I was doing my prep for this live stream, I was just curious. I Googled dressmaker history. Dressmaker history, because that's how this is branded right here. It's branded a dressmaker. And if you get down here, you can see the Japanese typically, they kind of walked away from this a little bit once they met with some opposition, but they always put their really pretty little branding plate on the front of here, just below the controls on the pillar. And there you can see it's branded as a model SAMB. And is that dirt? Oh, that is some dirt on there. How did I miss that? I did clean the machine up, but yeah, a little bit of dirt. As I lubricate some of the components on the inside of the machine, like this controller here, this and this, you know, I use that white crystal clear machine oil, and sometimes it kind of seeps around these places here where there's just a microscopic little gap. I think that's what happened. I got a little bit of that oil kind of leaking through. But the Japanese eventually got rid of these plates. And what they did is they got real clever. They kind of they went in different stages. They went from having the plate here, and then they put the plate on the inside of the pillar over here, and then they put it on the back of the machine, kind of underneath the motor, where the average consumer wouldn't be able to see that it was a Japanese machine. And that's because there were still a lot of bad feelings towards the Japanese after World War II ended. You know, they attacked Pearl Harbor. We bombed Hiroshima, Nagasaki. Then we take some steps of pacification to help them rebuild their economy. We give them patents and we give them designs for our American sewing machines. And they go to work in manufacturing machines over in Japan. The original plan was that they would market these within their own country or the surrounding countries around Japan. The original plan wasn't that they would flood our market and export them into the US and list similar machines for sale that were significantly lower in price than the American counterparts. And so what happened is a lot of those American counterparts got put out of business because these Japanese machines that were really pretty, they would come up with unique colors. They loved the robin blue as well, and this peach color, like Sonny called it. And they would just get out there and they would undercut the competition. And there were a lot of bad feelings. So they had to get clever. Okay, if we're going to continue to export machines to the US and try to make money, then we've got to get rid of this plate because it's telling people right away that it's a Japanese machine, and people are still not really good about what happened with the World War II. And then eventually they like I said, they moved it from here to back over here behind the machine underneath the motor. And then finally they came up with a totally new plate that basically listed a fictitious manufacturer. It would say something like Deluxe Sewing Machine Company, Premier Sewing Machine Company, blah, blah, blah Sewing Machine Company. And it would be clever because then the average consumer would look at that machine, not associated with an export from Japan, and it helped them out quite a bit as far as their sales. So there you go. So let's walk around this machine real quick, and then let's get into this live stream. I know all of you have a fairly busy weekend, and I'm so grateful that you've taken time to join us for this live stream on a Saturday morning. And it's kind of becoming our thing, isn't it? We're kind of getting into this thing of doing Saturday morning live streams. People kind of get into the habit of that. They adjust their schedules, which is awesome. Let me look at the live chat real quick. Show us Daniel. When I was a kid, I dreamed of giant snowstorms, but now I feel bad for those folks in the Great Lakes area. I feel bad for the folks that are in Buffalo, New York right now. Boy, are they getting slammed, huh? Oh, good morning to Daniel Becker as well. Good morning to Daniel Becker and Ron Wilkerson. I haven't seen some of these names before, but some of the other folks that are, into the live stream, the leaders and others, maybe they've seen these names before, but a special welcome if you're brand new and this is your first live stream, a special welcome to you. So glad to have you here. So, and Christine wrote, I remember those kinds of winters. Yeah. And they get winter up in Canada quite a bit as well. If you don't know it, Christine, that's in the chat there right now, is from northern Alberta, Canada. And they've already got winter in full bloom there. They've got snow. They've got freezing, sub-freezing temperatures, kind of like we're getting this weekend. This weekend, we're going to be hitting right around, what do they tell us? We're going to be hitting right around 9 degrees, I think is what they said. We're going to be hitting around 9 or 10 degrees. So we're going to be in the single digits. And then they're talking about today or tomorrow, the possibility of some snow too. So we're starting to get some of that. I think Christine from Canada is sending winter to Wisconsin and saying, okay, join the pate and have some fun. So let's just walk around this machine real quick. I'll show you some of the features on it and just make you a little bit more familiar with this model SAMB. So these right here, these prominent little white buttons, which are kind of fun, aren't they? These are so you can do darning. It's basically going to drop the feed dogs. So right now we've got this button and it's depressed. So it's going to allow us to sew. It's going to give us feed dog feed. And if we push this, It's then going to drop those feed dogs so we can do darning, we can do free motion quilting, freehand embroidery, whatever we want to do. The push button thing was something that was pretty classic to the Japanese machines. I think it's really cool. It makes it really easy. It's kind of a push button thing. Now we're back to regular sewing again. Oh, I want to do some more free motion quilting. There we go. Oh, hey, let's go back to sewing again. There we go. So yeah, it just kind of makes it convenient, doesn't it? It's nothing that you have to really think about. You just push the button, boom, you're done. This control right here is going to allow you to do a couple of things. It's going to give you the basic sewing mode, which is where you can see those two little red dots. Try to hold the camera real still. It's going to give you those two little red dots. That's going to be the basic sewing mode. And then it's got a 3-stage buttonholer that you can click through. Stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. You just push this little lever down right here, and you do that 3-stage buttonhole. A lot of makers came up with that. Some of them had 3, a couple of them had 4-stage buttonholes as well, which is kind of cool. And then right in the middle, you've got your reverse button. This is actually kind of a petite reverse button compared to a lot of the Japanese machines. A lot of the Japanese machines, you almost feel like, I'm going to show you this. You almost feel like they put a button as big as that on the front of there, like they're wondering if the average consumer has really bad eyes, and if they want to sew in reverse, we got to make it huge. Otherwise, how will they know what to push? So this is actually pretty small compared to a lot of the Japanese reverse buttons that you'll see on their machines. This is going to be our stitch length right here. And also it's going to give us a default, if I kind of turn it a little bit, and yes, it clicks like that. It's kind of a cool sound, isn't it? Listen to that. Then I can go, if I'm going to do cam type stitching, it's got a default right there where you can see that little red bar. That little red bar, there it is. That little red bar is going to be your sweet spot for some of the cam generated stitches that are engineered into this machine. And this machine does not require that you insert cams. They are engineered into a cam stack that joins with this. And then you've got a service point as well on the back of the machine right here, where this plate comes off, and there's some key lubrication points. Also, if the cam goes bad, because the cam is made out of a Teflon plastic material, if the cam goes bad, you can also access that cam a lot easier through this little door so that you're able to replace that cam stack. So that was actually some pretty good thinking. Obviously, the top comes off as well. There's a lot of servicing to do on the inside of there. And then I'll just take this little spool off temporarily and show you another thoughtful thing. When this machine was shipped by Erin Allan, these thread spools, this thread spool attachment was taken off. And it might be, and I'm only assuming, it might be because Erin did not realize, she was concerned, and she's like, I don't want this thing to get broken off. But she didn't realize it's actually designed with a spring release, so you can rotate it all the way upside down and tuck it in like that, so that it's not going to get broken off. That's the problem you run into sometimes with machines when you're moving them around, is these spool assemblies can get broken off. But the Japanese were clever. They designed this one so you don't need to remove it when you're transporting the machine. When you're moving it around, you just rotate it down and kind of tuck it in. And that's the way I'll ship it back to Erin, is probably just like this, kind of tucked into the machine, and that way it's going to be protected. It'll just be right above the motor assembly here. So, all right, let me put that right there. I'm doing this one-handed, so I'm trying to get this thread back into position. There we go. And there's our motor right back there. If you look, you can see it right there. It's a motor that, I'm trying to read the specifics on it. You may be able to see it better than me, but it's just showing you that it's a 1.5 amp motor. And this motor, some of these motors were engineered by Free Westinghouse. Free Westinghouse really got into the motor setup for a lot of the sewing machine makers. This one is not branded Free Westinghouse, but it very well could be a machine motor from them. They also made motors, if you didn't know it, Free Westinghouse made motors also for the Swedish beauties. They would kind of marry them up with those machines, and so they had a Swedish machine with an American motor, which was great. Okay, so back over to here. This is our stitch length again. I'm going to go ahead and rotate it back to where we'll be sewing a lot of our stitching over to 4. Up here, we've got kind of a tricky control right here. Just looking at it, it looks like, okay, what's tricky about it? Isn't it just the stitch width? Well, it is the stitch width, absolutely, 0 to 5. 0 to 5, if you're zigzagging or something like that, you're going to be turning it somewhere within the range of 1 to 5 if you're zigzagging. But here's the tricky thing about it. Where most machines, whether it's a FOF, whether it's a Husqvarna, whether it's an Elna, whether it's a Bernina, whether it's a Janome, all of those machines, for the most part, when you're sewing with them and you want to do a cam generated stitch, like something over here, you're always, I talk about this in live streams all the time. You're always going to set your stitch width on the highest number, and then you're going to adjust your stitch length. You're going to adjust your stitch length to a real short range to give yourself a really nicely defined, tight pattern. If you try to do that on this model SAMB, you're going to get really frustrated. And because sometimes a machine will land on the workbench, and I've never seen that specific model before. I've seen a ton of Japanese clone machines. I've seen a ton of dressmakers, but I've never specifically seen a dressmaker model SAMB. And on this model, when you want to sew these cam generated stitches, you've got to turn your stitch width, wait for it. You've got to turn your stitch width all the way down to 0. You got to turn your stitch width all the way down to 0. If you don't do that, all you're going to get is a modified zigzag. You're not going to get any of these stitches over here. And when you want to do straight stitching with this machine, another really important tip, if you happen to acquire one of these machines, because it's a little bit tricky, normally on a dial like this over here, you'll see one specific mark that clearly defines it as the place to set this if you want to do straight stitching. No such thing exists on this stitch pattern dial. No such thing exists. So when you want to do a regular straight stitch, you've got to set it on what almost looks like a mending stitch right here. You've got to turn your dial to this stitch selection right there that I'm on right now. Come on, camera. The camera thinks it's Saturday. It doesn't have to work. You have to work. So you set it on this for straight stitching or for zigzagging. And when you're doing the straight stitching, you obviously want to have your dial over here all the way on 0 as well. And if you're zigzagging, then you'll just turn this dial somewhere between 1 and 5. So again, this particular pattern design right here is a pattern design that you need to set it on for straight and zigzagging. And then turn this somewhere, if you're doing zigzagging, somewhere between 1 and 5, or if you're doing straight stitching, turn it all the way down on 0. But again, if you want to access any of these built-in fashion type patterns, you've got to turn your stitch width controller all the way down to 0. Because when you turn it down to 0, what it's going to do is, I've talked about that little finger that reads the bumps on the cam stack, whether you're inserting a cam and it has bumps, or whether you have a machine like this that already has a built-in Teflon style cam stack, and it's got all those little braille bumps going down it, all those little braille bumps. Until you turn the stitch width down on 0, it's not going to be pushing that reader finger against the cam stack to read those bumps. So just keep that in mind if you've got one of these machines or one similar that has that unique feature that you've got to turn it to 0 to access the cams, where all the other machines, you turn it usually all the way up to 5. You'll run into a lot of problems. I figured it out pretty quick, but initially I was like, what the heck is going on? All the mechanisms I've adjusted, everything is as it should be, but I'm not getting these patterns. And then all of a sudden I took the lid off and I adjusted this a couple times back and forth. And then I could see clearly that that little reader finger, when you turned it so that it was on 5, it would pull that finger back so that it wasn't reading. And then you turned it to 0, you're good to go. Anyway, blah, 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 blah. Okay, over here. So if we want to access one of these cams here, this little lever right here is nothing more than a lock. Right now, we're locked on straight stitching and zigzagging right there. If I want to be able to turn this dial, I've got to move this to the right. The other thing I want to do real quick before I do that is I want to retract that finger just so that that finger isn't in the way or getting forced against that cam. So I'm going to turn this down to 5, or turn it up to 5 rather. And now what I did by turning this all the way up to 5, and I know it's hard to see in that little window. This actually came off. I had to put it back on again, this little window. But we're all the way up on 5 now. Now that finger is retracted. And I'm going to go ahead and unlock this now. And now I can turn this dial freely to anywhere that I want. And then once you land on something that you like, let's say it's that blind hem right there. Once you land on something that you like, then what you can do is you can lock it in place. And now that dial will not move. And then you can turn this back to 0 so that you're going to put that finger into the cam stack, like so. Now, if we sew, we're going to get the blind hem stitch. And we can do the same thing. Here's the only tricky thing that you need to be aware of is every time, kind of like I talk about with the Husqvarnas. The Husqvarnas I talk about, you need to zero out the width. Remember I talk about that? You have to zero out the width so it pulls that finger back. We do not want to unlock it and then start trying to turn this dial, because right now that finger is into the cam stack. And if we try to turn this dial right now without retracting that reader finger, we could cause damage to it. So before we try turning this dial, I just unlocked it, but I've got to also retract that finger by turning this all the way back up to 5 again. Now I can choose another stitch without causing any damage. Let's say I want to go to this one right here. Kind of move my hand and give you a shot of that. I want to go to that one. No problem. Then I'll lock it in place. And then I'm going to go ahead and take this and take it all the way back up to 5, or excuse me, take it all the way back down to 0. Excuse me, take it all the way back down to 0. See, I'm conditioned to think right away, if we're going to sew a decorative ornamental stitch, we've got to put the stitch width on 5. It's the opposite with this machine. You get into a habit, and I actually misspoke there. So now I'm going to rotate this back down to 0. Boom. And now that finger has gone back into that cam stack again. So we're ready to do this next stitch pattern right there. And again, it's fairly simple once you get into a rhythm of things. And if you're not doing it all the time, it's, you know, it's a little weird. So now if I'm going to do it again, just for repetition, I'm going to go ahead and unlock it. Okay. So now this is unlocked. So this wheel will turn, but we're not going to turn it because we don't want to damage that cam stack reader. So I'm going to go ahead now and rotate this so that that finger is away from the cam stack, turn our stitch width all the way up to 5. Now I can turn this. So I can go ahead and select a different stitch again. Maybe this little, I don't know what you'd call this stitch right there. What would you guys call that one? The one on top. It almost looks like what are those, bugles? It almost looks like a bugle, doesn't it? Sort of, the bugle chip things. Yeah. Kind of looks like a bugle chip thing. So anyway, I turned it on that one. I'm going to go ahead and lock it in place now so that it stays on that stitch. And then I'm going to go ahead and rotate my stitch width back down to 0 again so that it's able to read that cam stack. So there you go. I just wanted to cover that a couple of times. I know you guys are very, very smart. You're incredibly smart. But like me, you may not have seen a machine like this that, as my father would have said, it's kind of backwards in the way he would say it differently, but I won't say that. He would say it differently. This one is kind of backwards from what we're accustomed to. So I'm going to set it up for straight stitching again right now. So I'm going to unlock this. I'm going to go ahead and retract that cam reading finger so I don't damage it. And now I'm going to rotate us all the way back to the setting that we'll be using right there for straight stitching and for zigzagging. That pattern right there. You know, it almost looks like a mending stitch, doesn't it? Kind of looks like a mending stitch. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and lock it in place. And then I'm going to rotate my stitch width all the way back down to 0 now. So we get a straight stitch. Okay. So now we're set up right now for a straight stitch. If I wanted to go from a straight stitch to a zigzag, it's not a big deal. All I'll do is adjust this somewhere between 1 to 5. If I adjust it between 1 to 5, we'll get a zigzag pattern. So just keep in mind that this is the setting on the dial right now. I don't know why they just decided to go with a zigzag pattern instead of like cutting this in half and doing a half of a zigzag pattern and then the little dot, 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 the little dashes vertically to signify that this is for a straight stitch, because it really does create quite a bit of confusion. But you figure it out and you get through it, right? So we're set up right now for a straight stitch on this Japanese machine, which is what we're going to be doing initially. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to show you. The only other thing I can show you is, and you've seen this multiple times on other machines, this is the presser foot pressure right here. And again, the simple rule is if we're going to be sewing heavy leather, like this protected full grain leather and doing more, more than one layer of it, maybe 2 layers of it, we want to have maximum pressure. So this has to be pushed down. You push down the centerpiece right here. You push it down as far as it'll go to give yourself maximum presser foot pressure. If you're sewing something a lot lighter, like trying to get to it, one-handed, you're sewing something a lot lighter like this 100% cotton, even though it's got a stiffener in it, it's still quite light. 100% cotton, we don't want to have that much presser foot pressure. It's going to cause bunching up. It's going to cause some feed issues for us. So the quickest solution is you push this outer ring right here. And what it does when you push this outer ring down, it releases all the presser foot pressure. So depending on what you're sewing, you're able to incrementally go up to a higher and higher presser foot pressure by just pushing this down in increments. So if I want that much, I can stop right there. We're doing some quilting. We're doing some quilting with cotton, but we've got quilt batting. We've got other layers. We're going to need more presser foot pressure than that. Why don't we go around mid-range? So then you push it down to about mid-range, somewhere right around there. When you try to do that, your stitching is coming out a little bit stubby. It's not coming out full length, even though you've got the stitch length turned all the way up to 4. So we need better feed. We need better presser foot pressure. So then you can push it down even a little bit further, say right about to there. It's getting better, but the stitches are still not full length. So you push it down a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. Yeah. Oops, I pushed it too far. What do I do? What do I do? Start over. That's where I wanted it. Yeah, not really. I wanted it. Doggone it, I went too far again. That's okay. Yeah. And the other beauty about this quick release that the Japanese became accustomed to putting on all of their machines is when I have it fully released like this, so there's no presser foot pressure. In other words, if we tried feeding material right now, we would have a disaster. It just wouldn't work well. But the other great thing about it is when you release all the presser foot pressure like that, it gives you the opportunity to grab that presser foot like this and to lift it up, because there's no spring pressure against there right now. So if you have something incredibly thick and you only have this much clearance typically, and there's no hyperextension on this SAMB model, then you can cheat and you can release all the pressure, and you can slide that real thick sewing project underneath there, and that's how much clearance you potentially can have. That's crazy because our normal clearance is right there. That's our normal clearance right there. And it's masked a little bit because, hold on a second. There we go. It's masked a little bit because this has a spring and it kind of pitches it down a little bit for better feeding. But this compared to this compared to that. Now, the only trick is once you get done getting that thick material underneath there, make sure you remember to reapply pressure foot pressure. Depending on what you're sewing and the thickness, you know, push that down and get to a range that's going to give you some good feed with your material. Yeah, I'll go right about there to start. We'll see how it works. If we're getting a little bit of a stubby stitch, we'll go ahead and increase this. So again, the simple rule with presser foot pressure, something thicker, multiple layers, something that's, you know, a little bit on the heavier side of things. You want to bump this up. Lighter stuff, you want to have it more up in this range so that you're not creating too much pressure down, and then you'll get bunching and puckering and all kinds of other weird stuff feeding that lighter material. Yeah, we'll go right about there because I think we'll probably do some leather pretty quick. And then obviously your upper tension right here. Some of you that follow upper tension right here, some of you that follow me on Facebook or on YouTube saw that I did a little video talking about this particular mechanism. I showed you how to adjust a number of things on it to calibrate it properly. If you didn't know, you have to calibrate upper tensions. Any upper tension unit is generally going to give you calibration options, whether it's the pitch of the spring, whether it's the return pressure on the spring when it's sewing the check spring in defining that lock stitch, whether it's how far you are able to turn your dial. I showed you in that video where if you have this calibrated wrong, you're not even able to get the full range of those numbers on your upper tension. So you'll have to sometimes make a few adjustments, and I kind of walk you through that. And then I also showed you how to properly clean an upper tension as well. Upper tensions need servicing just like any other part of the sewing machine. So if you missed that last live stream, check it out. It'll give you some really good tips on this particular machine. I will not mention that during that live stream, I had oil on my fingers and I actually dropped this upper tension. It was fully assembled and it landed on my soft, cushy carpeting. But yeah, that was a little taste of humility right there, wasn't it? And those of you that saw that, you're like, oh, wow, he dropped it. Yep, I did. I'll talk about this as well. Our setup today, I think it's the first time that I'm actually using, I'm going to shut off that light. I think it's actually the first time that I'm using this specific needle type. It is a Schmetz Universal, but it's a size 80. It's a size 80. I'm going to hold that really still. It's a size 80. And this is kind of I'll call it a party pack, a Schmetz Universal party pack that gives you size 70s, 80s, and also a few size 90 needles. And I thought about it for a little bit. I thought I've used size 70s. I've used embroidery needles that are 75 as far as the size. I've used a lot of 90s. I've used 100s. I've used 110s. I've never used a size 80. Why is that? I have no idea. So I decided when I got this party pack I think it was at Walmart. No, it was at Joann's. When I got this party pack at Joann's, I said, I've got to try a size 80 because what size needle, and this is a general statement, but what size needle is most popular in most quilting circles? In most quilting circles, what size needle are most quilters using typically? Oh boy. I was not looking at the chat. I see that our porn person has shown up again. So if one of the leaders could go ahead and go after them and delete them, please. Delete their comments and put them into a penalty box if you would, please. Let me set down the camera real quick. I'm going to make a command decision here real quick. Hold on. Christine, if you can hear me okay, Christine from Canada, to give us even more soldiers going after this porn person, I just have unilaterally promoted you to moderator on YouTube. So, Christine from Canada, you now have moderator authority. You can either delete this person's comments, you can throw them into a 200-second penalty box, or take any other action against them that you want to take. So, between Emma and Christine and Sunny and others that might be present that have moderator authority, go ahead and do that if you would. Okay. Yep. Emma got them, but Christine is a moderator now as well. She's already a leader on Facebook with me and Bill. So yeah, we'll go ahead and make Christine a moderator right now. I don't know why these people do this. They come to a family-friendly channel like this, where we're promoting vintage sewing machines, and they have to try to promote their junk. It's horrible. It's horrible because they can. You know what? You're right, Christine, because they can. And what I'll do is I'll go into the live stream chat settings after this. And if someone wants to, if one of the leaders wants to take a shot, a picture of the words that they're using, because they get real clever, I'll go into my block words for live streams and I'll put in something like SEX or GIRL, girls. They use a lot of the word, SEX and girls. And then they'll come up with something else with a different, screen name type thing that then can bypass the stop points that I put on the live streams. But if someone takes a picture of what screen name they're using this time, I'll try to go in there and block that one. And we'll just keep going after them. And that's part of the reason it's so great to have a moderating team. It's so great to have a moderating team because I'm over here focused on the machine. I did not even see what was happening in the live chat. And initially, Emma's at work. Sunny might have to step away. Paula might be tied up doing something on a Saturday. If I have no moderators in the live stream, this person that is promoting porn they have free reign. Someone just sent me a text. They have free reign to pretty much do anything they want to do. And so having more people that I trust with the authority of being a moderator is going to give us more boots on the ground, as they say. It's going to give us more boots on the ground where if one of the other moderators or two of the other moderators are not able to make a live stream for whatever reason, we have another moderator in the wings watching that live chat. And the same thing can happen not only with these porno people, but we've had a couple people in the past. Paula could talk about this. Sunny could talk about it. Emma could talk about it. Bill could talk about it, where we'll get some of these people that will join our live stream just to be disruptors. And they'll type inappropriate things in the chat and they'll do other things like that. And a couple of the moderators have had to throw them into a penalty box to remind them that that kind of stuff isn't going to fly here. So it's great to have, I wanted to go through more of a formal process of adding Christine as a moderator on YouTube. I wanted to involve the other leaders, but in extreme circumstances, I just have to make a decision on the spot for the best interest of this channel and to preserve it as a family-friendly channel. And, Christine attends a lot of these live streams, as does Emma and Sunny and Paula as well. And the more boots on the ground we have, the better chance we have of intercepting these people and sending them a message of go somewhere else where people like what you're promoting, because we don't like it here. And with so many of our audience members being women, the whole thing about porn and human trafficking and all the other junk, I'm getting on my soapbox right now, and we're supposed to be talking about a sewing machine, but all that other stuff is just incredibly degrading and insulting to women. So isn't it cool? Isn't it cool that a number of our leaders, our moderators that are in this live stream right now are ladies, and they can say to this porn person, You're out of here. You're out of here, man or woman. Who knows who it is? But any rate, like Christine said, why do they do it? Because they can. But we have countermeasures to try to at least discourage them and dissuade them from doing it on this channel. There's millions of channels out there. Go somewhere else and peddle your smut. We don't want it here, right? Yeah. Okay, let me look at my phone real quick. That sounded like the distinctive ringtone for Emma. Emma is sending me a message about something. Oh, Daniel. Thank you, Daniel. Yeah, but you know what, Daniel, you're making an excellent point. And this is where I say all the time. Sometimes a teacher, always a student. But even if it's a computerized bot, someone had to originate. I used to do website design. I used to write code and JavaScript and all that. You didn't know that about me. That's one of my secrets is I know how to write JavaScript, and I even wrote COBOL programs when I was in college and stuff. And so I understand the computer side of things, and a computerized bot that makes sense. And Daniel is I really appreciate him sharing that insight. But someone had to start that. You know what I mean? Someone had to program that bot or set that bot up to jump onto these live streams and to try to push their porn. So I'm talking to the person that did that programming or generated that bot to do this sort of thing. Someone's behind it. Someone like the movie Wizard of Oz. There's someone behind the curtain, and whether it's a bot or something else, or a person, we're going to do everything within our power to try to put them to a stop. And it's just irritating. It's really irritating and it's disrupting. But at the same time, it's kind of fun for the moderators because then they get to test some of the tools that YouTube gives us to try to deal with folks that are being disruptive in a live stream. So it's a two-edged sword, but I just wish they would go somewhere else. Don't you? Yeah, I really do. So anyway, thank you again to Daniel. Sometimes a teacher, always a student, and I learn from all of you all the time. And I right away make it personal, and I think there's someone personally doing this, but that makes total sense that it's computer generated. Totally makes sense. But maybe if we block them enough times, they're going to go ahead and somehow will derail their program or something. It seems what happened in the last one. They kept getting blocked and deleted, and then eventually they went away. So, oh, good. Uh, Emma just sent me a screenshot of the live chat with the screen name that this person is using. What is this? 118 SEX XYZ, it looks like. So I'll go ahead and add that to the list of prohibited posts and at least block this person. It's almost like getting those robocalls, isn't it? You block one number and they've got like 100 numbers, but we'll just keep at it and hopefully eventually they'll go somewhere else. I hope they do. I really do. Okay. So let's get back to the task at hand. Let's not allow this disruptor to sidetrack us. So I was talking about these needles and the fact that what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a size 80 needle. 80 needles, if you did not know it, are very, very popular. I'm going to turn it sideways to get closer. 80 needles, if you didn't know it, are very popular among quilters. Many, many, many quilters will use a size 80 needle. It's not always going to be a universal needle, but size 80 is pretty popular among quilters. So the fact that I've never used it, and I have a lot of customers that are quilters, it kind of almost surprised me a little bit when I thought about it. And size 80 again translates to a size 12. You've seen me use the embroidery style needles, and those are a size 75. It's going to be a size 11. So 75, 11, 80, 12. And then you've seen me use a bazillion size 90, 14 needles, and certainly larger as well. So the other thing about this machine, I'll mention it real quick before I forget. Oh, okay. Deborah is looking for some parts, it looks like. And Deborah, I also have a resource number as well, if I can find it. of a gentleman. If you reach out to me after this live stream, depending on what folks are able to help you find, um, if Deborah wants to reach out to me after the live stream, I've got a really good parts supplier that I point a lot of people to that is based in Illinois, and he finds some of the most difficult parts. And I'd be happy to pass his information along to you so you can contact him. Okay, what was I saying? Oh, a little bit more in the setup on this machine. We'll just cover the setup real quick, and I'll just show you a quick threading of it. If you're setting the needle for sewing, you'll want to put the flat side to the right. Like a lot of the Singer machines, flat side goes to the right, and then you thread the machine from left to right. As far as the bobbin, and it's going to be hard to see it, it's a class 15 style bobbin that's kind of tucked away inside of there. When you're holding that bobbin case after you put the bobbin in and you thread the bobbin case up, you want to make sure that it's turning clockwise. So just keep that in mind as you're threading the bobbin case in the bobbin should be turning clockwise. Flat side of the needle goes to the right, and then you thread the machine from left to right. And the threading real quick is, I think it's pretty simple, but I'll just show you anyway. We're coming off the top right here. First thread guide is right there. We come across the top of the machine. Got another thread guide right here. And this is a quick clip type thread guide where you can just draw the thread in from the back. I'm going to use Christine's recommendation here and kind of cut my hand behind it. But make sure that you also go through that hole as well. Don't just clip the thread through there, but also bring it through that front hole. Otherwise, what will happen is the thread will come loose on here in the sewing process. So make sure you come through that little hole right on the front. And I always say it, but whenever you're threading, you get to this point here past the Dressmaker branding mark. I'll let the camera catch up. Once you get past the Dressmaker branding mark, and you're going to be bringing the thread through your upper tension unit that I showed you how to service and calibrate, when you're drawing it through, make sure you have that presser foot lever in the up position so that there's no pressure on the discs. And this is an enclosed type assembly, so you can't see, like on some of them where when you release the pressure, you can actually jiggle the discs because there's no pressure on them. These are encased inside of here, so you really can't see that, but just make sure that lever is up. Draw that thread through nice and tight through the tension control. In other words, pull it, have your pressure up here so that the thread doesn't move, and then draw that thread through there nice and tight so you're getting deep inside of those discs, and they don't have an opportunity to kind of misgauge what that tension is. The deeper you are in the discs, the better, more even upper tension you're going to have. And then you bring that thread around, you kind of go through the goalposts on this check spring, this upper tension spring right here, so that the thread is right in the middle. I kind of showed that on that video where I was showing you guys how this spring was bent, and it was allowing that thread to slide past this little groove and get caught over there on the machine side. And then once you adjust this and get it calibrated properly, it seats in there very nicely, and you get really, really nice upper tension balance. Then we come underneath this thread guide right here. Do not put the thread through this hole. And a lot of people say, well, why the heck did they give us a hole? Why did they give us a hole right there if we're not going to run the thread through it? Well, you'd have to contact the Japanese manufacturers to say, why did they put a hole there? The reality is you just want to bring the thread underneath this thread guide and then go ahead and come up to this thread guide right here. After that, come up to your take-up arm. You thread the take-up arm from right to left. Then you're going to come down to this thread guide that's kind of tucked away inside of the faceplate area right now. And whereas some of the Japanese machines, you can just pop the faceplate open and access that thread guide a little bit more easily, with this one, you just have to kind of bring that thread and kind of sneak it in there. This faceplate does come off for servicing, but you've got to take a bolt out of there to get it off. So if you got nimble fingers, if you've got smaller fingers, it's easy enough to get it in there and then make sure that that thread is seated in there properly. And you've got another thread guide right there. Right there. You got a thread guide right there, just above the needle, right there on the left side. Hopefully I'm showing that correctly. We'll use Christine's trick here. There we go. You see that little thread guide right there. And then finally, we're going to come down to the needle. And again, we're going to be threading the needle from left to right. Yeah. So that's the threading. That's the setup. That's the orientation. That's the blah, blah, blah. And then if you weren't able to tell, I did replace the light on this. The light that this machine had was an incandescent bulb like this. And if you're trying to find a bulb like this for one of your machines, that instead of having the tab style one like on the Husqvarnas and a lot of the FOF models and some of the Singer models as well, where it's got those two little tabs on either side, you push it in and you turn it to lock it in place. If you're looking for a screw style like this, you want to look on eBay or Etsy or wherever. And this is considered to be a 5/8, 5/8, 5/8 size bulb. So just make sure you get the right kind, because they have all kinds of different size bases for bulbs like this. And they do have them in LED. And that's what I added to Erin's machine here, is I added an LED 5/8 base bulb that really, really transforms the light. You know, if you're able to see it all in the shot, but it just really does a beautiful job of brightening up that bed for the machine, and messing with the camera at the same time, because the camera hates LED lights. They just do. So yeah, don't struggle with poor light or add a ton of auxiliary type lights around your machine. Go ahead and upgrade yourself to an LED. And I say it all the time, there are different types of LEDs. Not all LED lights are created equal. Some of them are going to have a certain number of light nodes and put out certainly better light than this. But then there's going to be superior LED light bulbs that have a ton of light nodes, and they put out incredible light, just off the charts light. And those are the ones that I will put in machines if they come through the workshop and they have an older style incandescent, is I'll put in a brand new LED high node content type bulb. And some of the customers have just been beside themselves. They've said, I've been grabbing lamps. I've been trying to do all kinds of things to see what's happening down at the needle and on the bed, and none of it has worked. And now that now that you have one of those new LED bulbs, I'll show you the kind that I put in Erin's real quick. And again, just, take into account if you're going to order some or buy some or whatever, that they're not all going to be set up the same way. You can see this one right here. This is the one that I put in Erin's machine. And the little yellow blocks you can see, the more of these little yellow blocks there are, the better. You'll see some of these LED lights where they'll have like one, maybe like three in a row. You can see this one has 5 in a row. Maybe there's even a better one than this, but I've done a little bit of research, and this is one of the better ones out there right now that gives you multiple rows of these light node things. And this just puts out crazy light. And again, just make sure you get the right base size for this machine. At least it's going to be a 5/8. There are some other machines out there, some of the Elnas and the Neki machines, that use a smaller base than this. So you'll have to do something like, get yourself a little caliper and measure your base as best as you can. And then you can just write to that seller and say, I don't know exactly what size your bulb is. Mine measures in circumference right around 15 millimeters. Could you tell me, will that work will the bulb you have work with my machine? So 15 millimeters, and then you can even tell them, maybe measure it like that as well. Tell them it's going to be right around, what is that? 15, 16, around 17. Looks like around 17, something like that. So yeah, I mean, technology, we as vintage people will sometimes resist technology, won't we? It's a natural response because vintage and technology, it's almost like oil and water sometimes, isn't it? But certain technology advancements like light really can help us, especially as we get older too, to see what's happening down at the needle and on the bed. So, at any rate, that's just a quick little tip as far as upgrading potentially to LED. Potentially upgrading to LED. Oh, and I'll show you the bobbin as well, since you can't see it inside of the case. This is the style bobbin that this machine uses. It's going to be characteristic of a class 15 type bobbin. And if you're curious about dimensions, I can give you the dimensions of this as well real quick. Okay, so dimensions, the height on this bobbin, and class 15s are pretty easy to find. Looking at right around 11.5 millimeters. 11.5 millimeters. And then the height of it, kind of take it like this. It's going to be right around 21 millimeters. And the reason I'm showing this to you, you might say, Scott, this isn't our first rodeo. We know what a class 15 looks like. We know, if the machine takes a class 15, all you have to do is say class 15. Well, the reason I'm kind of harping on it a little bit is if I show you a little bucket of bobbins right here, these bobbins at a first glance look like they're class 15s. Some of them are, and some of them are not. This is my quick little bucket that if I get a machine that comes in and I'm having thread issues with that thread feeding out of the bobbin case, and I'm getting some wonkiness as far as the stitch quality, and I isolate it down to there's an issue with the bobbin. It could be that it's the right bobbin, but maybe that bobbin has gotten rough spots on the edges. And as it's spinning in that bobbin case, it's snagging occasionally because the tolerance and the space between the walls of the bobbin case and the bobbin itself are minuscule, very, very small. And, or maybe it's the fact that the center hole right here, the center hole on these bobbins is going to vary. Sometimes by as little as a thousandth of an inch, sometimes by as much as a millimeter, or a millimeter, sometimes by as much as a millimeter. And what happens then is it's spinning on the stem of that bobbin case. This will get a little bit of a wobble. It gets a little bit of a wobble like this. And that creates havoc as far as that thread coming off of this reel, coming off of this bobbin evenly and smoothly. So a number of factors can impact when you're talking about, dealing with bobbins. They can look virtually identical. This is the correct one. This would be the incorrect one because that center hole is wider. If you look at it real closely, that center hole is just a little bit wider than the one on the right. And that's going to create that wobble in the bobbin case. And, just be mindful of that. Last night, I was working very, very late in the workshop trying to get a Swedish beauty done for a customer, actually for a customer's grandmother who's right in the middle of a project right now and was trying to get some things done and get them ready for Christmas and for Thanksgiving for her family coming over. And I was dealing with issues with the bobbin winding assembly on that Husqvarna. I could not figure out what the issue was. I would get some good movement and then all of a sudden it would lock up. And the customer had said that, the belts were new. So I checked the belts. The belts look good. What I found is I'll show you again. It just goes to tell you aftermarket can sometimes be problematic. What I found, yeah, this is my junk bin of almost semi class 15 bobbins. All right. What I found is the belts that the customer had gotten for the machine, probably from eBay or somewhere like that. This on the Husqvarna is the dry belt that goes between the bobbin assembly and the motor output pulley. And this is one of the belts that was on the machine. When I measured it very carefully, stretched it out and measured it, it was less than a millimeter shorter than it was supposed to be. And so it was causing the motor to bind as the motor was trying to drive that bobbin assembly. This was creating excess drag on that. This was the motor belt, the long belt that goes over the balance wheel and the bobbin assembly. This one also was about a little bit more, about a millimeter short, and it was putting excess drag on the bobbin assembly and causing the mechanism to bind up. And I troubleshooted that for the longest time, and then finally went back to the basics of saying, just because a person trying to sell sewing machine belts stamps a belt with what would be the proper number, what would be the proper number for the belt for that machine, does not mean that the dimensions and the measurement of that belt is going to be spot on. And the same thing is true of bobbin cases as well. And the same thing is true of bobbins. So just realize, as vintage people, as we're having to get replacement parts for our machines, and there are people out there wanting to sell us those parts because they make money off doing that. Just realize some of them will work. Some of them will create problems for you. So, just, how would I say this? Get yourself back down to the basics as you're trying to troubleshoot an issue with your machine and say, okay, I'm going to check the belts. I'm going to check the needle. I'm going to check the bobbin case. I'm going to check the bobbin and make sure that everything is good to go. And then I'll know that I've got a winning scenario as far as this machine. So anyway, I was up till like almost 1 o'clock in the morning last night working on that and getting ready for the live stream and that. So if I ramble a little bit today, you'll have to forgive me. You have to forgive me. All right. The other thing I'll just show you, because sometimes folks will worry, is this is another gadget that I picked up, the scope, and it is, but it's designed to help you try sounds on your sewing machine. Into your ear just like you would as a medical person, and this little bar against different parts of the machine as you're hearing a sound. Maybe you're hearing something rubbing, maybe you're hearing a clicking sound or whatever it is. It'll help you to narrow that region down to where that sound is coming from and then deal with it. And so these are available. I'll just give a plug for Harbor Freight. These are available at Harbor Freight. They're really designed to work on automobiles. If you're listening to lifters or valves or something like that, and you're trying to isolate a sound you're getting on a car, these are fabulous. But you can also use them for vintage sewing machines as well. Sometimes you'll hear something happening on your machine, but as you're listening to it in that open space, you can't narrow it down. You'll say, well, it sounds like it's from here, but then when I lean in, it sounds like it's over here. This will help you to zero in exactly where that sound is coming from. And then you can try to troubleshoot it and address that issue. So, and they're not very expensive either, less than $10. So if you want to pick up a pair for yourself and try it on your vintage sewing machines, it'll give you a special edge in being able to diagnose and troubleshoot issues with your sewing machine. Okay, that's enough blah, blah, blahing. I've been all over the place, but all valuable information to share, I think. So let's actually try sewing with this thing, shall we? Let's actually try sewing with this machine. And I might have to shut this light off because the camera hates LED lights, but they're great when you're sewing, aren't they? Okay. So let me do this. We'll do some straight stitching. I'll do a straight stitch line down this protected full grain leather. We're not going to start crazy heavy. We'll just do a single layer. I might grab some other stuff as well. And the other thing you'll notice about this Japanese machine is the needle. You don't have a needle position option on this machine. Like a lot of the Japanese machines, the needle is always positioned to the far left side. So if that's something that you don't like, you probably will get frustrated a little bit with the Japanese machines because a lot of them are offset to the left, and there's no way to move it to the center. There's no way to move it to the right, other than when it's obviously sewing a zigzag or a pattern. So, oh, that was a good shot, actually. You can look at the thickness of that protected full grain leather. Probably about 3 to 4 ounces of leather. So nothing super thin about that at all. All right, let's go ahead and try sewing this. And again, we're sewing with a size 80 universal Schmetz needle. We're not using a 90. We're not using a leather needle. We're sewing with a universal needle. So we'll see how this machine does. Okay, almost there, almost there. All right, I think I'm ready. Here we go. Once I get my foot all the way on the foot controller. Yeah, some beautiful stitching, isn't it? Beautiful stitching. And again, a lot of people will look at protected full grain leather and they say, can my sewing machine, I'll get notes like this all the time from people, can my sewing machine do what your sewing machine did with protected full grain leather? Can it stitch through it that easily? I don't know. I don't know anything about your sewing machine. Sewing machines are like taking two cars that are identical in the year, identical in the model, identical in the manufacturing, the maker of that car, and saying, will these cars perform exactly the same? Will they go exactly the same speed? Will they drive exactly the same way? The history and the maintenance on those vehicles will determine how those machines are going to do, right? The maintenance and the history of those machines, how they were maintained, is going to give you a clear indication of how they perform. I'm going to try something real quick. I don't think this is going to work, though. This is another little gadget that I just got recently. I'm just curious if it'll work. My little robot guy here. I don't think it's going to work very well, but maybe it will. Maybe it'll surprise me and work well. I haven't given this guy a name yet, but I might eventually give this person a name. So someone called this a third hand, but I don't know what you'd call it. It's got a little magnify glass, these little alligator clip thingies that kind of hold things for you, give you a little bit more flexibility. We'll just look at the stitching that way as well. It kind of gives us a little bit better view, maybe. Yeah. And again, realize we could make this even better by sewing with a leather needle. It's going to give us a little bit better finished stitch. But all in all, quite excellent. See if I can do this one-handed now. I'm going to rotate this little arm back now. Just had to try this little guy. He's kind of cool. And then our lock stitch. You can look at the grain of that protected full grain leather and know that it's, it's serious leather. It's serious leather. It's not a garment style leather. That's for darn sure. Christine is calling him Wally. Or do I have to say it? Wally, Wally. I think that's the way they say it in the movie, isn't it? So lovely stitching, great lock stitch. Wally's going to rotate it back this way. Come on, Wally, bring your arm around there, buddy. Beautiful top stitch as well. Yeah, lovely stitching. And again, we can always make it better. If we use a leather needle, and if you don't know much about needles, there's a great site that I can try to share with you if you want to reach out after the live stream. Or I can just say it. Why don't I just say it? I'm sounding all dramatic and stuff. Why don't I just say it and then you can look it up yourself or Google it. It's called threadexchange.com. Threadexchange.com. And by the title of the company or whatever, the name of the company, you'd say, well, they know a lot about thread. Well, that's true. They've got everything from embalming thread to industrial type threads to quilting threads to Kevlar threads to fireproof threads, and you name it, they've got it. They've got every thread under the sun. But they're also very smart on needles as well. And they'll tell you what needles to put with what thread. So check them out. They're called Thread Exchange. I think I'm getting that right. If you Google threadexchange.com, you'll probably find them. But they're really, really cool folks. And I've actually called them and asked them questions, and they've got such a helpful, smart staff that they're just motivated to help. You know, you get the impression you call somebody and you almost feel like you're an interruption. When you call these folks for help and getting clarity on what needle should I use with this type of thread, or what thread is going to be good for UV protection, that sort of thing. They're very knowledgeable and they're very, very kind and very helpful. So I think you'll enjoy talking to them. Yeah, they're good folks. Wally, yeah, I have to call him Wally, I think. That's a good idea. All right, so let's do a little bit more with this machine now that I've been blah, blah, blahing forever. Let's do a little bit more with this machine and see what you guys think of this little doodad machine. So let's get this set up. We'll go down and do a straight stitch on this 100% cotton with a stiffener in it as well. We'll do a zigzag, and then we'll jump into some of the ornamental stitches that this machine is capable of doing. The other thing I'm going to do real quick, and those look like really good stitches, I might adjust this just a little bit because we're dealing with a cotton now. I don't know that we need the full force. Why don't we try the first row and see what we get? If we get a stubby or we get buckling or something like that, we'll adjust this accordingly. All right, so first of all, a straight stitch. And back to the basics again, kind of like checking motors, motor belts and all that. Just make sure that when you launch, and this is true of any sewing machine, make sure when you launch that your take-up arm here is at the highest position. I say that all the time in live streams and videos, and then it's on that downstroke. See how it's getting ready to downstroke as I move that balance wheel? That's the best way to launch when you can, because it frees up the mechanical binding of the machine. Okay, so straight stitch, zigzag, and then we'll do some of the decorative type stitching that this machine is capable of doing. Just checking everything. I've got everything set properly, it looks like. Yes, okay. Straight stitch, and listen to this machine run as well. Again, it's powered by a 1.5 amp engine, as my friends in Europe love to say. It's powered by a 1.5 engine or motor, which means it's comparable, at least as it's marked, it's comparable to the larger motors that you find in the Husqvarna machines, the green machines. All right, here we go. Straight stitch, and then we'll do some other fun stuff. See how we're getting a little bit of a bunching right there. See how the fabric is kind of puckering? That could be an indication, that we need to back off that foot pressure just a little bit. It's not horrible, but it's giving us a little telltale sign right there. Oh, those are beautiful stitches. Wow. Wow. All right, we'll do a zigzag, and then I'll probably show you all these at the end. I don't know if I'm going to use Wally to do it, but I might. I might use Wally to do it. And again, if you're joining the live stream a little bit late, we're sewing with a post-World War II Japanese dressmaker model SAMB. And when you Google dressmaker, let's say you Google the history of dressmakers or something like that, dressmaker sewing machine history, blah, blah, blah. What's going to come up right away is it's going to try to point you to the 201-2, the 201-2, because the 201-2 by Singer. And does anyone know when that machine was introduced? I know, but I'm wondering if you do. When did the 201-2 come on the scene? Because that was embraced immediately by seamstresses, and that was embraced immediately by tailors. That became kind of like the tailoring and the seamstress go-to machine, the 201-2, and certainly the 201K and the other 201 flavors as well. Really became a popular go-to machine for those folks that were doing different types of quilting and certainly tailoring. But does anyone know when that machine was introduced? I'm just looking at the chat real quick. Yeah, and sometimes a walking foot does help, Christine. A walking foot or a roller foot can be really helpful on machines, can't it? And I've got a bunch of them in the workshop. I'll just show you two examples. A walking foot or a roller foot can really be a great thing. It's an example of one of the roller foots that I have right there. And you'll notice that the rollers, unlike some of the rollers out there that are plastic, this actually has metal rollers. It's got a rear roller on the back, and then it's got another roller right here on the front. Here, let me cup it like that so it'll focus on my hand, hopefully. But these are fabulous for helping to give more even feed. Kind of almost looks like a Flintstone vehicle, doesn't it? It looks like a Flintstone vehicle with the roller type wheels on there. And these are excellent for helping to give more even feed and to try to eliminate some of that puckering effect. But you know what? Let me just say this in a matter of fact way. They are not the answer to everything. A walking foot or a roller foot. This is an example of one of the walking feet that I've got right here. And they're wonderful aids in helping to improve the sewing feed and keep the evenness, especially if you're dealing with multiple layers. But it all comes down to this attachment or this attachment working with that presser foot pressure setting that you have. If you have the inappropriate presser foot setting for the type of material or the layers of material you're working with, this will help, but it's not going to solve the problem. You're still going to have issues. So if you're going to use something like this, great, but adjust that presser foot pressure so that this can work even more effectively in getting the job done for you. Whether you decide to go with a walking foot like this or a roller foot like this. And these are also great because they're set up to be, with the wide throat plate opening, they're set up to be, you can use it for decorative stitching. You can use it for zigzagging or anything else you want to use it for. And also, if you get one of these, whether you get a roller foot or whether you get a walking foot, just be aware that depending on the style of your machine and the design of the presser foot bar, you've got to make sure that this attachment will fit that bar properly. If you pick something where, let's say that your presser foot bar is going to be more of a rounded type presser foot bar, it's only going to work with certain attachments. So make sure that it's fully compatible. Otherwise, it will either not align properly and it'll be, it could cause a needle break or it could cause damage to the machine, or it just won't work properly. So look at the style and make sure that it's compatible with your machine and the presser foot bar design. Every machine is going to have a unique presser foot bar as far as how it's contoured and how that attachment is going to fit to it based on this design up here. So just make sure that you get the right one. Otherwise, you could get very frustrated, or worse, you could cause damage to your machine. So, yeah. So great suggestion by Christine. Great suggestion. But again, it doesn't work unless you also take into account presser foot pressure. You got to do that as well. So with that in mind, let's make a quick little adjustment, shall we? Make a quick little adjustment. Right now we're set here. And this probably has numbers on it. It's a little bit hard to see. I'm going to get on my magnifier, see if I can see it more easily. See if this is one of those that has numbers on it. Nope, this one does not. I'm not seeing any numbers on it. Normally, some of these will have little etching marks on this shaft that I just released. It'll have little etching marks and have numbers. And this one here, well, you get the idea. I'm trying to cup it to there we go. So this one, for whatever reason, they did not put the little etching marks with the numbers on it, which would make it nicer, wouldn't it? But we're going to go ahead and adjust this a little bit. We were right around in this range, I want to say, right about there, I think. So we're going to go a little bit less than that to see if it improves our feed a little bit. We'll probably try that. Hopefully that's not too little. And if we're getting some bad feed, then I'll go ahead and increase this a little bit. But again, if you're using a roller or a walking foot, you still have to adjust this. You still have to adjust this to make it compatible with the type of sewing that you're doing. Okay, take off my magnifiers right now. Otherwise, it's like Mr. Magoo. I can't see a thing. Okay, so we've done a straight stitch. Yay. Yay. Hour into the live stream, I don't want stitch off, but that's okay. So right now we're set on 0 on the stitch width, which is normally where we would be if we were going to be doing, on this machine at least, where we would be using some of these ornamental stitches. But right now we're going to adjust it up a little bit. Yeah, let's see. I'll do a 3. You can't see it in the window probably, but I've got the little red bar right now behind the 3. And then we'll adjust the stitch length a little bit to kind of mirror and match it. So 3. So now I've set the stitch length on 3. The stitch width is on 3. And again, if you join the live stream late, this particular model, SAMB, you want to make sure that you set it right here when you're doing straight and zigzag stitching, right on that setting right there. Otherwise, you're not going to get a straight or a zigzag stitch. You're going to get one of these other pattern stitches, depending on where you have the stitch width set. Okay, so let's try doing a zigzag now. We're going to be doing a 3x3, and we'll see what we think of that one. Get my take-up arm all the way up. And again, we just made a slight little adjustment on the presser foot pressure, and we'll see if that helps eliminate or at least reduce the amount of kind of the puckering that we were getting a little bit when we ran that first stitch line. All right, here we go. Blah, blah, blah. Here we go. And again, we're sewing today with a size 80 Schmetz Universal needle. Decided to do a size 80 because I'd never done a size 80 before, at least not, I don't remember doing it. And it's a real common needle size that quilters like to use. So I like to, get a lot of quilting customers. I like to try to use setups that are similar to what they're going to be using back in their sewing space. Got kind of a tight little space today. I keep bumping the camera. Hopefully I don't disconnect it, or we'll be ending the live stream early today. Okay, so I did the zigzag. Yeah, it's a lovely zigzag. We got some real good balance. I'll give you like a little pre-glimpse. That again is our straight stitching and our zigzag. The zigzag looks a little bit odd because I have it as a 3x3, but I could probably, it's not bad. It's pretty cool actually. I could probably make it a little bit shorter and kind of make that peak a little bit more evident. But it is a lovely, lovely stitch, the straight and the zigzag that we just did. Turn it over, look at the lock stitch. Equally gorgeous. Great definition, great stitch presentation. Definitely a page 34 or page 34 plus as far as the quality of stitching that we just laid down. Yeah, lovely, lovely stuff. All right, so let's actually do something that's cam generated now. Why don't we do something cam generated? And I'll show you how we kind of set that up a little bit. Yeah, and I think we got better feed that time too, didn't we? And partly because we stitched off this edge. We've got that edge closed off now. But at the same time, I didn't notice any puckering in front of the presser foot. And it's because we backed off that presser foot pressure just a little bit. It's the appropriate amount of presser foot pressure for this type of material setup that we have right now. Okay, so now we're going to move into the cam world. Let's move into the cam world, shall we? So the first thing we have to do is right now, I'm going to go ahead and unlock our cam dial. Because again, if you join the live stream late, this little lock right here, once you choose what stitch you want on this wheel, you then lock it in place by pushing it to the left. When you push it to the left, it prevents that dial from moving inadvertently. So I'm going to move that over there, and then I'm going to make sure that my stitch width is all the way over by 5 so that that finger is completely retracted. That finger is completely retracted. Then I'm going to adjust to one of these. And I would love for you to be able to pick something for us. I'll just kind of start with this one right here. And then I'll kind of click through. And you can tell me which one you'd like to see me sew first. So we've got this one right here. And they're not numbered, so it's kind of awkward, isn't it? It's kind of awkward. Well, I want so why don't we just say numerically? That'd be 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is the blind hem. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So along with our default setting right here, that allows us to do a straight and a zigzag that we were on initially. We then have all these other stitch options. And again, numerically, I'm just going to kind of count them. 1, 2, 3, 4 is our blind hem. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And if it's a little bit hard to see those other ones, I'll just try to draw the camera back a little bit. Yeah, let's try turning the camera on the side. Maybe that'll help. So those are our stitch options. Looks like we have a total of 11 along with our default. So I'm just going to look at the chat. Yeah, Japanese brother machines. Well, obviously brother machines have roots of Japan, so yeah, they would also have a similar setup. Daniel is absolutely correct. So no one's typing any numbers. You guys are having wonderful conversations in chat, which I love, but no one is offering a number suggestion as far as the stitch options. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick one. I'll just go ahead and pick one, and we'll just go ahead and move forward. Oh, and I didn't even say good morning and welcome to the owner, Erin Allan. Erin Allan is in the live chat right now, and I didn't look at all the chat, so I didn't know if you've already. I'm sure that you've already greeted Erin Allan, but you may not have known that Erin Allan is the owner of this Dressmaker model SAMB. And again, she rescued this machine. It was having a number of challenges. and she sent this beautiful machine to the workshop some time ago. So, but again, I'd love to involve your input if you'd like to be if you'd like to contribute your input to one of these stitches. Again, the way I counted them off to make it reasonably easy is starting right at the top here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 is our blind hem stitch right over there. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. You can kind of see the patterns that those are. Okay, so it looks like Emma typed in 10. Emma typed in 10, which I'm guessing would be this one right over here, almost like the little McDonald's symbol thing. So let's go ahead and go to 10. We'll go to 10. I'm going to set the camera down. So what I'm going to do again to select 10 is I've got this unlocked. Move that up a little bit. I've got this unlocked. In other words, I have this push to the right. This is pushed to the right, so it's unlocked. And I want to now make sure, I want to make absolutely sure that my stitch width is retracted all the way to 5, which it is, so that that reader finger is not pressing against the cam stack. And now I'm going to turn my dial. All the way to the one that Emma wanted to see, this one right here, almost like a little McDonald's symbol, I guess it would be. You see, we've got it right at the top with the little red marker. Now we need to lock it into place. So I'm going to go ahead and push this to the right. Or to the left, excuse me. I must be dyslexic today. It was to the right, which means it was unlocked. And now I'm pushing it to the left to lock it. So now you can see this dial is locked on this particular stitch that Emma picked. I didn't realize this rotated. How cool is that? I've had this camera for a couple months now, and I didn't realize that the top of it actually, I thought, oh, wow. Wow. Sometimes a teacher, always a student. Look at that. Oh, that's funny. All right. And then the next thing I need to do after I selected that stitch is I need to now move that reader finger into the cam to read it. So I'm going to turn this all the way to 0. Again, this is kind of backwards. Most other machines, if you're doing decorative sewing like this, you're always going to move the stitch width to the highest number, and then you'll adjust your stitch length to make that pattern a little bit more defined. On this machine, you've got to turn this all the way to 0, which pushes that finger into the cam stack. So now we've done that. Now we have to go over to the stitch length, and we have to take it down to that default red setting. Can you see that? I hope you can see that. I'm going to take it to that little default red setting, and that's for cam stitching. This control down here, we don't have to do a thing with that. You're always going to have it in the position with the 2 or 3 dots. I guess it's 3 dots. I think I said 2 before. And then these other settings, 1, 2, 3, are for doing that 3-stage buttonhole. So otherwise, you're going to leave it. I'll turn the camera sideways as well. You're going to leave it exactly as it is right now for all of the sewing you're doing, unless you're doing a buttonhole. Okay, so let's give this stitch a go. See what we think. Waiting for that camera to focus. Looks like we're focused. And again, if you joined the live stream a little bit late, we did a beautiful line of straight stitching. We did a beautiful line of zigzagging. Now we're going to be focusing on the cam possibilities for this model SAMB. Get my take-up arm all the way up. And this particular machine is from an era where it depended exclusively on needle movement. Totally on needle movement. Some of the machines you've seen on this channel, they use cams to manipulate the feed dogs very rapidly. That's called tri-motion. Tri-motion is where the feed dogs might very rapidly go forward twice, back 3 times, almost like a dance. This machine is going to depend strictly on feed dog movement forward and then needle movement to execute the stitches. And most of these stitches are going to have a base of being a zigzag, but it's going to use the needle movement and the rate of the feed dog feed to generate different outcomes as far as the pattern. Yeah. All right. Let's give this a go. See what we think. This is the one that I believe that Emma picked out. Just going to check, make sure my thread hasn't done anything weird. And here we go. Yeah, that's fun, isn't it? Isn't that fun? And I didn't adjust the presser foot pressure, just kind of going with what we had. And there it is. Isn't that lovely? All of the folks in this live stream have such great insights and such great taste. And I'm kind of glad Emma picked that one. That's really a fun pattern, isn't it? We'll do some other patterns as well. Kind of move through the different options that this machine is capable of doing. Yeah, lovely, lovely, lovely. Oops. This is a hand-eye coordination test here. I think I got it now. Here we go. And the air is getting drier. If you're in a climate that isn't kind of in cold weather right now, then you might not understand that as the cold weather moves in, the air becomes a lot more dry. And when the air becomes more dry, static electricity increases dramatically. And that can have an impact on the thread kind of curling and doing other weird stuff as you're trying to do different things with your sewing machine. So just keep that into account. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll grab a little spray bottle, and before I sit down to one of the machines on the workbench, I'll spritz water on the carpeting that's beneath me, because most of the time static electricity, if you didn't know it, originates at the lowest level, and then it kind of goes upward, and it can even as it goes upward, it can even transfer itself to metal. If you've never gotten a horrible static shock off of touching something metal, boy, oh boy, it surprises you. It surprises you. Those of you that are in cold climates or otherwise have experienced it, you know exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, it can be a real shocker. Okay, so let's go to our next stitch. I don't know if someone wants to pick another one out. Emma picked out the one. I'm going to kind of go like this, get the camera reasonably stable. So again, the way that I kind of counted them off is, now I've got to do this upside down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 is the bugle style stitch on top there. As a matter of fact, I can move us back to a neutral spot. Move us back to a neutral spot. And again, what I did before I moved this dial is I unlocked it by pushing it to the right. Pushing this lever to the right unlocks the dial. And then I also retracted the reader finger by turning this, it was on 0, and then I moved it all the way over to 5 to retract that finger. I actually did these out of order. Ideally, what you want to do as you're transitioning between different patterns is you want to retract the finger first. And I unlocked it, and then I did the finger after that, turning the stitch width up to 5. So ideally, it's not going to be a huge difference, but it's a little bit better for the machine. Turn this to 5, then go from left to right to unlock this, and then choose your next stitch. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so any other numbers? Looks like 4. Susie is picking 4. And congratulations again to Susie. Like I said, I always like to involve my leadership team in decisions. Not only do they judge contests like we're doing right now, where I'm giving away a fully restored featherweight, and they're going to be casting their vote to decide that grand prize winner, but also when I recruit somebody for Facebook, Christine can attest to the fact that she went through a sort of an interview with Bill O'Rourke. Bill vetted her and gave two enthusiastic thumbs up for Christine after visiting with her through Facebook Messenger. So I don't just, I have the authority to make any decision I want, but I love to involve my leadership team because they have great minds and they have insights that I might miss something. You know what I mean? It's the same way I did it when I was in healthcare many years ago. Whenever someone was being hired, if I was hiring, say, a nurse practitioner, or I was hiring an RN or an LPN, or out in California, I was hiring LVNs sometimes when I was in healthcare many, many years ago. I would never, ever, ever, ever hire somebody by my own accord without putting them in front of my team, my leadership team. And boy, oh boy, did that save my life a couple times. Another nurse would be in the room with me, and a nurse that was being interviewed would say something that was really, really problematic. And I wouldn't catch it because I'm not a nurse. And that nurse would talk to me afterwards and say, Scott, I know you have the authority to hire this person, but please don't, because they said X, Y, and Z. So, yeah, but I made a unilateral decision the other day to put Susie into a moderator role on the YouTube channel here, and I didn't involve the leaders, and I know the leaders forgave me for that. And then I did it again today with Christine because we had the porno person on here. So my leadership team is probably going to pull me to the side and say, wait a second here. Now you moved two people into moderator roles and you didn't involve us. What's up with that? What are you doing? So, all right. So let me do, looks like Emma and Susie. Oh, and Erin wants to do 8. Let's do 8 and 4. And 8, let's see. Okay, 8. Let's do 8. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I've got this retracted, I've got that unlocked. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so this is the one that the owner just picked. This is 8. And I'll just have her confirm. I counted them off very carefully. 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, that's correct. So that is 8. Okay, perfect. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and lock this stitch in place. I'm going to push this lever from right over to left. So now this is locked in on the stitch that Allan wants to see. Then I need to take my reader finger with the stitch width, and I need to move it from 5, because right now on 5, it's pulled away from the cam stack. It's pulled away from the cam stack, so right now it's not going to read it. We need to turn it all the way to the left to 0 so it can read the cam stack. And then finally, our stitch length is already set with a little default red that they recommend you use as far as decorative stitching. So with that, we should be good to go. I'm going to go ahead and move it over here. I'll just take a quick look at the chat to see if I am missing anything. Yeah, beautiful stitching. Well, yeah, and I agree with Emma. And it's not that the leaders, it's not that that I don't value the input of the leaders. I absolutely do, and they know that. Anyone that's worked with me for a while, Bill O'Rourke, for example, at one point we had Olga from Paris, France, that was serving on the Facebook team, just like Christine is doing now. And Olga and Bill talked for a couple of hours, and he eventually circled back and he said, I think she's great. Same thing was true when, you guys remember Hans from Sweden? Or actually, excuse me, Hans from Norway. Hans from Norway was also a moderator on the Facebook page. And at the time, I only had Bill on the team, I think. I have to think about that now. Yeah, I think I only had Bill on the team. And Bill spent probably a good 45 minutes chatting with Hans in Norway via Facebook Messenger. So I love to involve the leadership team in every decision, because it's, more minds, great minds coming together. We make better decisions and we do great things. But again, in these situations, hopefully they give me grace and they forgive me for adding yesterday or day before, I lose track of time, but I added Susie without involving them, and then I just added Christine right now today because of the porno person. And Emma's at work, and if she gets pulled away, then we've got porno person running crazy on the page. And I don't know if Sunny, I haven't looked at the chat at all. Yeah, Sunny is still here as far as I can see. Sunny is also one of the leadership team members. But the more leaders, the more eyes watching the page. You know what I mean? Because I'm not even focused on the page. All right, blah, blah, blah. Let's do this next stitch that the owner picked out, Erin Allan. Move this a little bit closer. Check my camera angle. Yeah, that looks good. All right, let's do this next stitch. See what we think of this. And again, I didn't show you guys and gals. We'll just say guys is like neutral. But I'm using an electronic foot controller. And I explained this in the other live stream where I was showing you guys about the upper tension unit and that sort of thing and how to service it and all that kind of thing. I was explaining that the foot controller that Erin sent with the machine was this Mercury style foot controller. And Mercury style foot controllers are very popular among Japanese sewing machines. And they're generally going to be rated somewhere between 1 amp and 1.2 amps. That's usually more than enough because a lot of the Japanese machines are going to be right around 0.8 amps, maybe 0.9. Couple of them 1.0, 1 amp, but they're never going to really go much above that. Erin Allan's model SAMB is the exception to that rule, kind of like the way you set it up for cam stitching. Her motor is rated at 1.5 amps. This particular foot controller made by Mercury is only good for about 1.1 amps. And so the result, if you use a foot controller that has lower amperage than the motor, it's going to cause the foot controller to superheat and to become very, very hot. In an extreme situation, it could actually catch fire. So, if one of you moderators would go after our person, I think that's a different screen name, isn't it now? Yeah, it is. I think that's different than if one of you could take a picture of that and text that one to me. So the first person gave up because the moderating team kept hammering them. And you can throw them into a timeout as well, not just delete their comment, but if you want to throw them into a timeout also, just click the 3 little dots next to their name and you can throw them into a timeout. And that'll maybe even disrupt the Autobot even a little bit more. But any rate, what a shame, isn't it? What a shame. Yeah, Christine, and that's why I feel good about my decision to make Christine a leader. She is like Emma's at work, and her attention is divided a little bit. Sunny might have to step away for whatever reason. Christine is just like, we don't delay, we don't mess around in Canada. Where I'm going to jump all over this knucklehead. So good for you, Christine. Well done. So anyway, back to the foot controllers. The foot controller is the gateway to the electricity. The power goes through this first, and then it's fed to the motor. So this has to have a higher amperage tolerance than the motor. And this one wasn't working. So I ended up adding an electronic foot controller, which is rated at 1.5 amps. I wish it were rated even a little bit higher, but 1.5 amps is really, really good. And it will feed and provide steady energy and power to this motor without overheating because it has a circuit board in here that controls the regulation, almost like a rheostat. It controls the regulation of speed. It doesn't have any carbon stacks in it like the other foot controllers, and so it doesn't superheat. And so you can even run this foot controller at slow speed, and it's not going to get hot like carbon-based foot controllers. The ones that go with featherweights, the Bakelite style ones, and they go with the 201-2s, they go with the 99Ks, a lot of the other ones. You know what ones I'm talking about. The traditional Bakelite foot controllers have 2 long rows of wafer-style carbon pieces. They're as thin as a wafer. They're incredibly thin, and there's a whole stack of them. In each of the stacks, there's probably about 50 to 60 of them. And that's where the electricity feeds through. And as you're slow sewing, the electricity builds up in those carbon stacks in the Bakelite style foot controllers or any carbon-based foot controller. And as the energy builds up in there, the electricity, almost like it's getting backed up in a traffic jam, and wants to flow out of there and go to the motor. We're holding it back by sewing slow. As it's getting backed up in those carbon stacks in the traditional foot controllers that Singer used a lot of, uh, that starts to superheat. It starts to superheat, and it results in, and that was the notification sound for Emma. If you heard that, she just sent me another screenshot. The moderators went after the first porno person. They gave up, or the Autobot gave up, or whatever. And then another one just presented itself. I think it's a different name entirely. So they don't have a chance with the moderators on duty. I don't know why they think they do. They're going to delete the comment. They're going to throw them into a timeout, but they just keep coming. Like Daniel said, it's automated. Just boom, 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 boom. One fails, another one shows up, another one like an ant at a picnic. So anyway, this is a great foot controller. It doesn't heat even with slow sewing. And I think it was Paula that said the last time. Paula's another one of the leadership team. She said, I didn't know. I didn't understand. I did not understand that when I'm using my Bakelite foot controller and I'm really trying to control that speed and I'm just barely pushing it down, that electricity is building up in those carbon stacks, and that foot controller is going to start to superheat. And a lot of people don't know that, but that's the reality. When you're dealing with a carbon-based foot controller, the electricity gets backed up in there like a traffic jam. Electricity generates a lot of heat, and because it can't flow out of there and go to the motor, that foot controller starts to superheat. So just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. If you're going to be doing a lot of slow sewing, with your sewing machine, it's okay. It's okay to move from a traditional vintage carbon-based foot controller to an electronic one, so that you can sew really, really slow. And, most of our vintage machines don't have that slow gear like the Husqvarnas. They don't have that slow gear, or that switch that kind of ratchets the motor down a little bit, like on some of the Necky machines. So if you're going to be doing a lot of slow sewing or a lot of free motion quilting, and you really have to keep that speed down to get your rhythm, then go ahead and convert over to an electronic type foot controller. It might require some wiring. So if you're not comfortable with that, you might want to, get an electrician friend or someone that feels comfortable doing that to wire it properly for you. Oh, I love that emoji. Trying to look, my glasses get dirty so quick. Robin R just put up a fun emoji, and I noticed that YouTube has really upgraded. If you don't use emojis usually in the live streams, if you click near the bottom where it's got the little smiley face thingy, they've added a lot of fun emojis that you can incorporate into what you're typing into the live chat to create a reaction or something like that. Or if someone shares something that's really cool that you didn't know, because again, in our environment, we learn from each other all the time. We're fellow teachers, we're fellow students. If someone types something really cool, or they share something like, hey, I didn't know that. You can type like, hey, great, thanks, or whatever, but you can also throw in a fun emoji to emphasize or to create a reaction to what they shared. Isn't that cool? I love it. Okay. So let's do this next stitch after all that blah, blah, blahing that the owner wanted me to do, Erin Allan. And hopefully all of you have had a chance to meet the owner. She is out in the great state of Vermont with her family. And previous to this machine, I had a chance to also restore a 21E, a Husqvarna Viking 21E for her as well. And she's delighted with that. See that? Our moderators, if someone coming on this channel is wanting to learn and wanting to be a part of it and interact and just have a positive experience, the moderators will be your best friend. They will be your best friend. They're going to make you feel welcome. They're going to share their knowledge with you. They're going to give you a sense of you're part of the family from the very get-go. But if you're a naysayer, if you're a negative person, if you're a person that wants to bring inappropriate things to the forum, they're going to get out their little moderator hammer, and you're going to feel the force of that very quickly. So yeah, let's be a family. Let's learn together. Let's have fun. But yeah, do it in an appropriate way so that the moderators don't have to pull out their hammer, as Paula likes to call it, and wield their hammer, because they'll do it. They'll do it. All right, let's do this next stitch now. After all that blah, blah, blahing. All right, I'm getting my take-up arm all the way up. And now we're going to do this next stitch that Erin and Allan wanted to see. All right, here we go. Oh, isn't that a pretty one? Isn't that pretty? Oh, wow. Holy mackerel. Great choice, Erin. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that spectacular? And again, we don't have, with this machine, this SAMB that was made in Japan, we don't have discretion like we do with the Husqvarnas and some of the other machines I've shown you on this channel. We do not have the discretion to set a different stitch width. When we set our stitch width on 0 to actuate the cam, that's what we get. So we don't have any range that we can use like on some of the machines. The same thing is true of the stitch length with the machine as well. It gives us that red marker. We can go like a click left or right as long as we're in that red marker range for stitch length. So we could tighten this up a little bit more. We could tighten this up a little bit more than it is right now. But otherwise, we have to kind of rely on the setup of the machine. But isn't that a lovely stitch? And we'll look at all these in totality once we get through some more of these stitch options. And I totally lost track. That was Erin's choice, and I think someone else picked 4, if I'm not mistaken. And if there's other stitches that have been typed in there, let me know that. Yeah, that's a beautiful stitch. Get this thread brought to the back, hopefully without knocking the camera over. And if anyone else, that's a regular in the live stream, we've got a number of regular. Oh, let me say something else real quick. I'm getting all ditzy witsy here, in a sense. Let me say something else that I wanted to address that I forgot to address, and that is that if any of you that are in the live stream right now also do Facebook, you'll notice that to recognize the leaders, I ended up putting together a fun little reel video with a fun song and then animating that leader with a picture that I had of them, and posted it up on Facebook, and a great response. I gave Sonny, for example, a Beatles song. I gave Paula a song by, what the heck is the name of that group? It's a group out of Sweden. ABBA, or ABBA. I don't know. Is it ABBA or ABBA? I have no idea. But I animated her with an ABBA song or an ABBA song or whatever it is. And then I did It's Up to You, New York, New York, for Bill O'Rourke, because Bill is originally, like Emma, is originally from Brooklyn, New York. So I animated him. I did not have a picture of Susie from Minnesota. I did not have a picture of Michelle. I did not have a picture. I feel like I'm doing a Dr. Seuss book here, Sam I Am. But if any of the leaders that are part of the leadership team didn't see a reel done on you with an animation and the music, would you, through Facebook Messenger or texting or otherwise, send me a picture of yourself, and I would be glad to do a reel for you as well. I did one on Christine with a really fun trucker song, because Christine used to drive truck up in Canada. And so, at any rate, I didn't want to leave any leaders out, but I didn't have pictures of some of the other leaders. So if you're one of the leadership team members and you want me to do a fun reel on you as well, you can even tell me if you have a genre of music you like, if you like rock, if you like country, if you like bebop, who knows what. I would love to do that for you as well. So, at any rate, blah, 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 blah. All right. Yeah, Christine was all over Canada and the US. So if you get lost, well, you don't have her cell phone number like I do, and I'm not giving her cell phone number out. It's private. But but if you could contact Christine, if you were lost, she probably could help you out real quick. She probably knows the US probably better than I do. Truckers are that way. They are so good. They are so brilliant when it comes to directions, aren't they? They know the shortcuts, they know the roads that are problematic and get backed up at certain times of the day. They're so smart. Okay, so now I'm going to go over here. You've already seen the stitches we've done, which are spectacular. Yeah, they are. I love them. Now we're going to do, I think someone had picked stitch 4. So now I'm going to do this right. I'm going to do this correct this time. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the reading finger away from the cam stack. Take the reader finger away from the cam stack. I'll turn this from 0 all the way to 5. Now I'm going to unlock it. And I pushed it to the right. And now I'm going to try to, let's see here. I lost track. Someone, I think, wanted to see stitch 4, if I'm not mistaken. 1, 2, 3. So stitch 4 is a blind hem stitch, right? So I'm going to set it on the blind hem stitch. That was stitch 4. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lock it in place. Then we can't turn this. So it's fixed in that place. It's locked on that stitch. Now I'm going to rotate the reader finger end to the cam stack, turning it all the way to 0. That was fun. Turning all the way to 0. I'm not going to mess around with the stitch length. I'm going to leave it right in that little red spot that it tells us to use. We're going to sew this next stitch, and then I'll give you guys some other options if you want to pick some other stitches. I think that'd be totally awesome and cool. The owner especially wants to pick any other stitches. Yeah, Robin's right. It's a good day to be inside sewing today. I don't know where Robin is from. I have no idea where Robin is from. She may have shared it higher up in the chat. I didn't catch it. I don't know what the temperature is by her. Maybe it's really hot or maybe it's really cold. But in Wisconsin this weekend, I shared at the beginning of the live stream, we're supposed to get down into single digits. And I think Christine in Canada told me it's already in the single digits up by her. So it's cold all over the place, ridiculously cold. And I'll probably be out and about. I do have to go service a couple of machines for elderly customers that are in their home. So I'll just get into their house real quick and get warm and then go back out to the car and turn the heat back on again real quick. Oh, I don't recognize that name either. Mesa or Misa GSP. Welcome to Mesa or Misa GSP. So many new people joining us. Isn't it great? Isn't it great to have new folks come in, share their knowledge, and also become fellow students with us and learn from us, and we learn from them? Isn't it great to have new people? I love it. I love it. All right, let's do this next hitch stitch. Stitch in a ditch. I have no idea what I'm talking about right now. I better drink some of my, oh, I did get a Diet Coke. Yay. I've got my Diet Coke and I haven't even taken a sip yet. I got to take a sip of Diet Coke, y'all. Oh, that hits the spot. All right. So we'll do a next stitch now. It's like a blind hem stitch. And then I'll see if anyone else wants to pick any stitches out. And if you're joining us late, we're sewing with a Schmetz Universal Size 80 sewing machine needle today. And I got it in this multi-pack from Joann's, I believe it was. They give you size 70, size 80, size 90. And you'll see that the only one that's missing is a size 80 all the way to the far right there. And I don't remember sewing with a size 80, which equates to a size 12 before. So this is kind of fun to try something new today, isn't it? And it's doing quite a nice job, isn't it? It's doing a very nice job. All right. All right, so let's do this next stitch. All right, here we go. That's teeny tiny. That's teeny tiny, isn't it? Oh my goodness gravy. That is a teeny tiny blind hem stitch. I'm used to seeing them a lot bigger than that. Wowzer. That is teeny tiny. I'll just show you a little glimpse of it there. Just, yeah, and there's our lock stitch on the back. And again, because of the technology of trying to generate stitching like this by using basically the equivalent of you're using a zigzag stitch, but it's manipulating the zigzag. It doesn't have the benefit of the tri-motion where the feed dogs kind of kick in and they help to define the stitch better. The stitching on this machine is really quite exceptional for the era that it was done, and the fact that it's using just motion, needle movement to generate these stitches. Really quite impressive. And obviously, as technology improved and they involved the feed dogs in generating stitching and manipulating that material very rapidly during the sewing process, the caliber and the quality of the stitching just went up exponentially. And now a lot of people will pay thousands and thousands of dollars for contemporary machines to have a computer board do what the vintage machines were doing manually. So it's pretty cool. I think, matter of fact, Christine, when I introduced Christine on the Facebook post that I did of her, she mentioned that she's got a real fancy computer machine, but she can't get the computer board for it. She's not able to get the computer board. So this machine does not have the technology to mirror stitch. Robin had just asked that question. It does not have the technology to do a mirror stitch. The stitch options you have are right here that are on this stitch wheel. These are your stitch options right here. And again, unlike some machines where you'll have some discretion, you'll have discretion, sometimes significant discretion, in modifying the stitch width or the stitch length. On this model SAMB, that again was made post-World War II, right around late 1940s is when this machine very likely would have come on the scene. Um, you know, you're a little bit more limited in doing some of the things that some of you might be accustomed to doing with later vintage models, and certainly with contemporary models when you have a computer in the mix as well. But these are our stitch options right here pretty much. So if you count the default way over here, where we set it for straight stitching and zigzag, you've got 15 stitches. If I counted them right, 11, 12, no, 13, I'm sorry, 13 stitches. Because you've got 11 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, you've got 11 plus the straight and the zigzag. So you have 13 stitches altogether if you count the decorative ornamental stitches along with the more basic utility stitching of straight and zigzag. So total of 13 stitches, which is pretty doggone impressive considering you never have to put a cam into this machine. They're all being generated by that cam stack that's built into the machine. I'm just checking to see that it's staying in focus. Christine is saying, let's see, Emma's saying 3. Christine is saying 11. So let's do 3. And if I missed anyone, if anyone else in the chat above there, because we've got a lot of chat going on right now, which is beautiful. I love when y'all folks, I think I just went to the South. When you folks are really chatting it up and sharing things and it doesn't have to be related to exactly what I'm doing. It can be associated in some way, but you're just getting to know each other. That's exactly the type of environment that myself and the leaders are hoping for. And I've shared with the leadership team, after I get done doing a live stream, it'll give me a stat summary, and then it'll give me a number as far as the chat. The last numbers we were hitting for our chat was 2, which means, wow, we are kicking it. We are kicking it. And there's a lot of conversations going on, which is beautiful. That's exactly what we're hoping for. Exactly what we're hoping for. So let me do this next one. Let me get on task here. 3, we're going to do 3 first. So I'm going to be a good boy. I'm going to be a good boy and do it right here. I'll go ahead and retract our cam stack reading finger first. I'm going to go ahead and unlock this. Take us all the way back to the beginning. So someone had typed in 3 and 11, right? Yeah, 3 and 11. 3 and 11. So I'm putting it on 3. I'm going to go ahead and lock this in place. I've got it on 3. I'm going to take our stitch width now down to 0 so that we're moving that reader finger into the cam stack. So we've set that. We've locked this. We've set this on 0. We're not going to touch that. So now let's do this next stitch, and then I'll do stitch. Someone had picked stitch 11, I believe. We'll do next. Yeah, let's do this next stitch. This is stitch number 3. I think it was Emma that picked this stitch, I believe. I think it was Emma. Okay. All right, here we go. Making sure I didn't miss anything. Yep, I think I got it. See, I gave it a little bit too much gas there. It's really got some get up and go, doesn't it? Hold on a second. I've got the camera touching the bed of the machine, so I'm getting a little bit of vibration. Here we go. All right, here we go. Oh, that's kind of fun, isn't it? And again, we can always improve on these patterns. We can always improve on these patterns if we are using probably even a smaller needle for embroidery type stitching like this. We go to a size 70 maybe. I don't know that I've ever sewn with a size 70 in one of my videos either. So that would be another thought. And then we could always tweak that stitch length a little bit to tighten these patterns up even a little bit more. But what a lovely pattern. This, I would say it's number 3, and now we'll do a number 11 after this. We just kind of draw this thread out a little bit, and I'll show you the back side as well. There's our back side right there. Yeah, very, very nice. Nice sewing, very nice sewing machine that Erin saved. Erin Allan, again, bought this. I don't remember. Erin could type in the chat if she bought it. I said antique shop, but it may have been a thrift shop. I don't know, remember exactly where she found this machine, but I'm so glad that she saved the machine, because if you don't know it, and I don't want to badmouth Goodwill or St. Vincent's or any of those other folks that do thrift shops. I don't want to badmouth them, but I've got some friends that work at those places. And for a while, if you didn't know it, if I didn't share it, for a while, St. Vincent de Paul, which runs thrift shops all over the place, and also Goodwill, they had me coming in and helping them to appraise machines before they would list them on eBay or before they would put them up for sale on the floor. And so I got to know these folks a little bit. I got to know them just a wee bit. And they told me, they said, we don't want people to know this, but with certain items, including sewing machines, and this was more so before we started partnering with each other, and I got them to see the value in the machines that they had. And I, gave them tips on promoting the machine, the language to use, and helping to educate the consumer on what the machine could do, blah, blah, blah. But they said in the past, when a sewing machine did not sell, we threw them in the dumpsters. Now, that was shocking to me. That was shocking to me, but it's what they did, and they were honest about it. We don't sell something after a period of time. The same thing is true of the china and the ceramic things and other things that they get as donations. If they don't sell them after a certain amount of time, because they only have so much storage space and they keep getting more and more donations, they end up throwing a lot of that stuff, including some of the vintage sewing machines, in the dumpster. And then these dumpsters are set up with the crusher, so it ends up crushing everything in those dumpsters. I was horrified. I was like, what? No way. What? Are you? Ah! I was just like almost going into a little bit of a tirade there. I didn't yell at anybody, but I was shocked. I was shocked. So, yeah, when someone can go to a Goodwill or St. Vinny's and find a great machine, and like Erin, if it's got issues going on, send it to the workshop so I can get that machine running well. We've saved a machine. That's kind of what Erin and I talked about off, on the side chat or whatever, is we can save machines. We can give them a new opportunity, can't we? Oh, I'm reading up ahead now. So Erin did buy this at an antique shop, it looks like. Yeah. So, yeah, we can save machines, kind of like save the whales. We can save the whales in the vintage space. How cool is that? Okay, I'm blah, blah, blahing. So we just did stitch number 3, I believe it was. Getting some great results here, aren't we? Aren't they spectacular? Yeah, very spectacular. Now let's do stitch 11. If I'm not totally confused, which happens for me sometimes, we'll do stitch 11 now. So I'm going to go ahead and retract my reader finger from the cam stack. Now I'm going to unlock it. And stitch 11, where is that? Stitch 11 is like way over here, right? Isn't that what did you guys call this? A bugle stitch? Is this a bugle stitch? Is that number 11? I think it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah. So now we're going to do what I think a lot of us call a bugle stitch, but it probably has an official name to it, doesn't it? It's probably like a blah, la, 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 la. I don't know what they'd call it, but I guess we could call it a bugle stitch, huh? Yeah. Deborah and she's saying, howdy y'all. Where is Deborah from? Is Deborah from Texas or somewhere down south? Or is she just a cow country gal and she knows that I love it when people say howdy? I don't know where she's from. If Deborah shared where she's from, yes. And you know what? And Robin R, this one weighs as much as a small car. Yeah, it does. This Dressmaker SAMB, it is heavier than a small car. So when I pack this baby to head out to Vermont, I'm going to pack it like we're going to airdrop this in. Yeah, we're going to airdrop it in almost. Yeah. Deborah is in the Northeast, the frugal people. Now, what is the Northeast? Isn't that where Erin is from? Is Vermont considered Northeast? Or do you have to be from Maine to be Northeast? Or maybe Delaware? Delaware is Northeast. Is Deborah going to tell us what state she's from, or is it a secret? I don't know. Maybe the moderators can threaten to throw her into the penalty box if she doesn't share with us where she's from. It's up to you, Deborah. You don't have to share with us where you're from, dear, if you don't want to, what state you're from. So anyway, we're gonna sew the bugle stitch next. I've gone ahead and selected it. Now we need to lock it into place by moving our lever over to the left. Again, when you move that over, it locks this in place so you can't turn the stitch knob. It's locked in place now. And now we need to rotate our stitch width to 0 to move that cam reader into position. Other than that, we're pretty good. I'm going to leave that. Well, let's see. Yeah, I'll leave the stitch length where it's at right now. Been getting some good outcomes with that, so we'll leave that alone. And again, I've got the sewing light off. One of the things that Erin, Allan, and I talked about is it had that old style incandescent bulb in, right? It had this old bulb in. It wasn't the greatest of light. So I replaced it with that LED bulb that I showed you. If you joined the live stream late, then you probably missed that. You probably missed a bunch of stuff, but that's okay. You can always watch the video afterwards. But I replaced it with one of these. Oops, I almost dropped it. I'm dropped today. I replaced it with one of these high output LED bulbs. And again, the LEDs are not created equal. Some of these bulbs will have just 3 of these nodes in a row. The nodes are the little yellow things you can see there. Others will have 4. The ones that I use as a replacement for this type of screw-in style, which is a 5/8 inch base, 5/8 inch base, 5/8, has 5 in a row. There might be better ones than this, but these are really, really outstanding. And so when Erin goes to turn her light on, which is on the side of the machine, I didn't even show you where that is. The light is on the side of the machine right over here. This little doodad right there. Just turn it. And all of a sudden, whoa, we can land a plane now. We can land a plane. Runway 4 is clear. We can now land a plane. So, but again, the camera doesn't really like the LED lights very much. So I usually shut it off if I can during the live stream. Okay, so we're all set to do this next stitch. I think it's stitch number 11. And we'll see what we think of this one. See what we think of this one. We look at my run time. We're at about 2 hours and 28 minutes. And I know that's going to be surprising to a lot of you because you're like, when we get together, we totally lose track of time. And we're enjoying each other's company so much. We're learning from each other. We're acting, excuse me, we're acting as teachers and teaching others, sharing our base of knowledge. Time just runs away quickly. Well, we're over 2 hours right now, 2 hours and 28 minutes. So I'm going to maybe cut off a couple more things real quick. And maybe we'll do a little bit of heavier duty sewing with Erin's model SAMB, the Dressmaker. And again, when you Google the history of the Dressmaker sewing machine, they're going to be trying to point you to the 201-2. Don't buy the lie. Don't buy the lie. The 201-2 is most noted for what? Any of my experienced fellow students and teachers, type in the chat what the 201-2 is most noted for. Yes, it was popular with tailors. Yes, it was popular with seamstresses when it was introduced in what year? Does anyone know when the 201-2 was introduced? What year? So I'm basically asking you 2 questions. What year was the 201-2 introduced? And then also tell me the other part of the question that I asked before that. Yeah. See if you can do that. And I'll stitch off this next stitch, stitch number 11, I think it was. And again, if you missed the beginning of the live stream, I was up until like 1 o'clock in the morning last night working on a problem with a Husqvarna machine that needs to go back to a grandmother that's right in the middle of a project right now. It came by way of Joanne's as a referral. So I try to help those folks out when I can, as quickly as I can. And so if I'm a little rambly today, if you're like, Scott seems like he didn't get much sleep last night. Yep, that's true. That's true. I'm running on Diet Coke right now. Running on Diet Coke. All right. So let's do this next stitch, stitch 11, which is kind of a bugle stitch, I think, isn't it? Kind of a bugle stitch. Let's see what we think of this one. Oh, this chair is starting to give out. I'll be sitting in it and I'll get lower and lower and lower and lower to the floor. Yeah. All right, here we go. I'll try to keep it nice and steady. And I am barely pushing down this foot controller right now. I mean, we could go a lot faster if we wanted to. There we go. So this is the bugle style stitch, and it's not really a true bugle, is it? It's almost like a half a bugle if you look at it. And this does represent exactly the pattern, for the most part, that they're showing on the screen. But it's yeah, it's different looking, isn't it? And again, we don't have the discretion to manipulate stitch width. We've got to set it on 0. And we don't have the discretion to manipulate much in the way of stitch length. So the pattern is what we get. And again, going to a size 70 needle instead of a size 80, it would give us a little bit more freedom. Size 70 would be a size 10. A size 10 needle would give us even better stitch definition and greater clarity of the stitch pattern. But our size 80 is doing a pretty doggone decent job. Size 80, again, is going to equate to a size 12. Yeah, size 12 sewing needle. And a lot of people will use also the Schmetz embroidery needles, which are a size 75, which equates to a size 11. And those are great needles if you're doing a lot of ornamental type sewing like this. But yeah, all in all, a real decent job using technology from the 1940s, strictly basically taking a zigzag stitch and manipulating it through that cam stack to generate all of these stitches that you can see here. So pretty doggone impressive. And then eventually, you know, they incorporated tri-motion with the feed dogs, and they really got some super spectacularly detailed decorative ornamental stitches as well. But all in all, very, very impressive for this post-World War II Japanese machine. I'll kind of show it to you this way as well. Turn it over for our lock stitch. And you remember that recent machine that I showed you? I want to say that it was the German, oh goodness, what was the German machine? Phoenix, the German Phoenix. That's right. The German Phoenix machine, on the rear of it, it had an additional dial where when you're dealing with a cam stack, you never know when you're dealing with a cam stack where it's going to start on that cam stack pattern. In other words, it goes through and generates a pattern of really tiny, tight zigzag, and that kind of expands it here to give us the look of that that bugle type stitch. Here you can see where we started kind of in the middle. We started, let's see. Yeah, we started in the middle of that pattern stack where that finger was reading the pattern. On that German, if you didn't see that live stream, on that German machine, that Phoenix machine, just a monster of a machine, really quite fabulous. Had that beautiful wood extension bed, if you remember that. There was a little dial on the rear of the machine where you could calibrate the beginning of that cam pattern each time. So you always, always, always have the full pattern instead of a partial pattern like you do right there. Really a brilliant feature on that German machine. If you guys remember that machine I'm talking about? If you missed that live stream, check it out. It's really quite spectacular. Yeah, kind of cool just to see the differences in the machines. Okay, so I did 3 and then I did 11. Are there any other numbers that somebody wants to see before we wrap up this live stream, or before I grab some other material and we'll do some heavy duty sewing with this? I'm not going to go crazy heavy duty because we've got a size 80 universal needle, not quite as robust as a 90 or 100, but we'll see what we can do with it. Just have a little bit of fun. Looking at the chat. Yeah, Christine remembers that. Yeah, Robin remembers that machine as well. Yeah, the Morse machines are cool, Daniel. I like those. And a lot of those Morses were also stamped on the bottom JAP. Those were made, some of those were made in Japan also. Yeah, great machines. I've shown the Morse machines a couple of times on this channel. Oh, bye, favored one. Susie is saying goodbye to favored one. I'm looking here. So I don't see any other numbers. So I'm going to just pick a couple of other patterns to do real quick and just kind of move us forward because of the time. So I'm going to, again, be a good boy. And first thing I'll do when I'm going between patterns is I'll go ahead and retract that stitch width. I'll take it from 0 all the way to 5, which is going to pull that reader finger back. And again, the cam stack is going to have bumps almost like Braille. And as that finger reads over those bumps, that's what tells it as far as generating the appropriate stitch. All right, I'm going to get that into position. Now I'm going to go ahead and unlock. Go ahead and unlock the stitch wheel. That way I can change between stitch patterns. What do I want to do? This is an interesting one. I don't think we picked this one. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is stitch number 6. I don't think we did stitch number 6 yet. And I'll show you kind of what it looks like. Almost looks kind of like a bird or something. So I'm going to go ahead and I chose that stitch. I'm going to go ahead and lock it in place. I'm going to push that to the side, and now it's locked on that stitch. I'm going to go to my stitch width, and I've got to go from 5 all the way to 0 so that that finger is pushed into the cam stack. So now we're on 0. I'm going to leave the stitch length alone. I'm really tempted. I'm really tempted because the little red bar thing there clearly has a little bit of a range to it, sort of, kind of. But I wonder if I clicked it one more. I just clicked it one more. I'm getting dangerous here. I clicked it one more to the left. Will it feed, or did I click it far enough over that when I go to do this next pattern, it's going to be like stuck? You know what I mean? There's going to be no material feed, and it's going to be like stuck, and I'm going to be like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I should have just left well enough alone and left it alone. But I got to try it. I got to try it. If we don't get any material feed, then we'll make sure the needle is clear of the material. I'll click it back one more over to the other side, and then we'll see what happens with that. Yeah, let's see what happens. Oh, why do I do this? I'm having great success, and I've got to goof it up, right? Scott, you always have to goof it up, man. What's up with that? What's up with that, buddy? All right. We'll give this pattern a try. If I don't get any material feed, then I'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and step it up as far as the stitch length. We'll bump it up a little bit higher. All right, let's see what happens. Here we go. Oh, we're getting material feed. We're getting material feed, so I'm going to keep on going, see what happens. I got to get used to this electronic book controller. Got to get used to this. Oh yeah, it's a little different. This is a little different, isn't it? This is the one I just picked. It's got like a little shell thing going on in the middle, and then it's got a little peak as you go down. Kind of looks like a bird a little bit. I don't know what you would call this pattern. You can come up with your own name for any of your patterns. I'm kind of a Bill Ross that stitches. Bill Ross would always say, call it what you want to call it. It's your creation. So I say like Bill Ross, Bob Ross, not Bill Ross. Maybe Bob had a brother named Bill. I have no idea. But Bob Ross, okay, now I've got the right name. Bob Ross, with regard to painting, would always let people kind of have discretion. Call it what you want to call it. So this pattern, I'm kind of calling it a bird type pattern, but you might call it something totally different, and you're just as right, because it's your pattern. You can call it what you want to call it. But it's quite spectacular. Living on the edge. Yeah, let's live on the edge. Let's be wild. Let's be wild and attract these younger people that are watching all these YouTube videos and TikTok and all that. And they're going, holy cow, I just came across this channel of this guy in Wisconsin, and he's crazy. He's like fun. He's like wild. He's making sewing look so interesting. And they goof around. They have great interaction. That's the kind of environment that we want to attract the younger people, isn't it? That's the kind of environment we want. Christine shared with me that she said, I was really never into wanting to take on repairing sewing machines. I'd worked on cars, I'd worked on trucks, and I came across your channel, and all of a sudden I got inspired to want to start tinkering on vintage sewing machines. If we can inspire people to get interested in the VSM space, this will not be a dinosaur in the future. It will be a thriving place to come together and to share great ideas, right? Yeah. All right, so this is stitch, I'm calling it stitch 6, I guess. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is stitch 6 that we just sewed. Clip these threads. Kind of draw that thread out a little bit. And then we'll look at this stitch. This is probably one of my favorite ones so far. So I'm glad we tried it. I'm glad we tried it on Erin Allan's SAMB. Yeah, I am. I'm really glad. Take a look at that one. So far in this live stream, kind of giving you, I want you to be able to see as much of it as you can. Yeah. So far in this live stream, we started with a straight, we did the zigzag, we did this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We did 6 other decorative type stitches with this post-World War II Japanese SAMB machine. So we've tested a lot of the fun stitches already with this machine, haven't we? So I think what I'll do, unless someone has another number. Oh, welcome back to Sunny. I guess Sunny stepped away for a little bit. Yeah, happy little stitches. I agree with you. Mesa GSP. Yeah, beautiful stitches. They really are quite lovely, aren't they? Let me turn it over and show you lock stitch as well. This is our lock stitch over here. Really quite spectacular, aren't they? And again, take into account, unlike some of the other machines like the Husqvarnas that came out in the 1950s and 60s, where they incorporated the tri-motion, where not only do you have needle swing, but you also have the feed dogs, as I described, manipulating that material back and forth in stages very rapidly. So here we're relying strictly on normal feed dog feed and that needle using a type of zigzag to generate all that you see here. It's quite amazing. What this machine is doing almost seems impossible. It almost seems impossible, but it's doing it anyway, isn't it? It's giving us some great outcomes. So I'm going to show the stitches to all of you one more time. And if there's anyone, especially the owner, if the owner or anyone else, this is your last chance during this live stream to pick a stitch that we haven't done already. So I'm going to get this back underneath the presser foot, get us ready for our next potential stitch or stitches. Because I got all this space. I mean, we got like an ocean of space here. Doesn't mean we need to fill it up, because I'll send this with the machine anyway. And then Erin out in Vermont can have fun stitching on this 100% cotton material with this stiffener in it. Otherwise, we can do probably like 1 or 2 more stitches, 2 stitches or something like that. Yeah. How do glasses get dirty? How do glasses get dirty just sitting here? I mean, how does that happen? I guess it happens because I obviously have heat down here and the furnace is blowing. And even though I've got a really good filter on this furnace, there's stuff that comes through the vents, right? Probably Hank. Hank is like throwing dirt. Hank is throwing dirt in the vents and it's pushing it down here. Hank, stop that. Stop it. You're getting my glasses dirty, buddy. You're getting my glasses dirty. No more. Stop, buddy. Stop. Yeah. All right. So let me show you the stitches one more time. Give you an opportunity to potentially pick another stitch. Actually, let me do this first. Let me do this in order, sort of, kind of. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and retract the finger first, rotating it from 0 all the way to 5. That pulls that finger away from the cam stack so that as I'm manipulating this, I'm not going to cause potential damage to that cam stack finger. Okay. Then I'm going to unlock this. unlock this right here so that I can move this. Move this all the way over there. All right, so now I'm at the starting point. I'm going to show this to you. So again, the way I'm counting them, right, wrong, or indifferent, the way I'm counting these is starting right there on that one. Starting 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, 4 is the blind hem stitch that we already did. And we got 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So our bugle one is 11, and then kind of the way I just counted them. So if anyone sees another stitch that we haven't done already that you'd like to see done, especially if Erin Allan, the owner, sees any stitch that kind of catches your fancy, we can give it a go. So again, the way I'm counting this off is 1, 2, 3, 4 is as kind of a marker point is our blind hem. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay, I'm going to move the camera back. Now that I discovered this thing rotates, now it's rotating when I don't want it to. See that? You discovered something new, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, I'm going to do what I want to do when I want to do it. Yeah, going to do it. Going to do it. Heck, I just show you that little red light again. I'm going to turn the light on just temporarily. Wait for it. Wait for it. Wait for it. Aha! Yeah! Woo! Light off. All right. That was fun. All right. All right. All right. Let's see here. Looking way at the top here. Oh, Candido. That's a fun name. Susie, one of our leaders, has just said, hello, Candido. That's a fun name. I love it. Candido Rivera. Where is Candido from? Did Candido tell us? Or Candido Rivera? What a beautiful name that is. Isn't that a fun name? Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. Oh, we have another. Oh, Dr. Z. Dr. Z is from Finland. You see that long screen name. And then near the end, it says Dr. Zikar Nikin Fan La 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 channel. The really long one. The really long one. That gentleman is from Finland. So welcome from Finland. That's fun. Yeah, it has been. Emma is so right. It's been a long time since we've seen Dr. Z. He's been busy doing something in Finland. Somebody asked Dr. Z why he was so busy in Finland. What's going on with that? Why have you been away from the family, Dr. Z? What's going on, my friend? What's going on? We missed you. We missed you. Yeah. All right. Okay, so let me look before the numbers disappear. 5 or 1, 7, 5, 1, 7. So let's see if we can do 5, 1, 7 or 1, 5, 7. Why don't we do them in order? We'll do 1, 5, 7. Let's do that. Okay, so I better write this down because without much sleep, I'll forget. 1, 5, 7. 1, 5, 7. All right, so 1. These will be our last pattern stitches. 1, 5, 7. I hope I didn't miss anything. 1, 5, 7. Okay. 1, 5, 7. Let's do 1 first. Okay. So we got that already. We're good there. We're good there. This is unlocked. This is on 5. The finger is retracted. So 1 is this one right here. That wasn't too far to go, was it? We're going to do that one first. Yeah, that looks like an interesting stitch, doesn't it? I'm going to go ahead and lock that in place. So now we have stitch 1 locked in. Now I'm going to take my reader finger with my stitch width. I'm going to go from 5 all the way to 0 so that that finger is rotated into the cam stack to read it. We're not going to do anything with stitch length. We'll leave it just there. And let's go ahead and do this next stitch. And the only thing I need to do is I need to straighten out my material because apparently I bumped it. And we don't have a lot of presser foot pressure right now, so it's easier to bump it out of the way. I'm going to increase our presser foot pressure just a little bit. Just a little bit. Okay, this is stitch pattern 1 that was picked by one of our friends. Take my take-up arm all the way up. All right, here we go. Pattern 1. Here we go. Did I just break the needle? I think I just broke the needle. What did I do? That's scary. Hold on a second. I did just break the needle. Oh my goodness gravy. That needle gave out. We just broke that needle. Oh boy. That was crazy. See that? That size 80, I just broke it. There it is on the bottom. Look at that. Something about that. Maybe the stitch length, because it was trying to make that pattern, was just a little bit too much. And we just snapped that needle right off. See that? You go to a size 80 and all of a sudden things go crazy. So I'm going to click that stitch length back a little bit. So now I have an opportunity to put a needle in. Goody gumdrops. All right, so let's get another. We're not going to give up on the size 80. Let's get another size 80 in there. Hopefully that doesn't repeat. Yep, that needle just gave out. Okay, so again, when you're setting the needle, flat side goes to the right. I'm going to turn my light on just for this so I can see that flat side a little bit more easily. I haven't broken a needle on a live stream or a video for quite a while. But apparently, something about that pattern, it did not like it. And again, these older style Japanese machines rely on this pattern cam stack to tell it where to move that needle. And it's possible we had a little bit of a misread. I don't see any damage. There's no damage to the throat plate. So I'm at a loss as to why we had that needle break, but it broke, didn't it? Yeah, it sure did. Now you can laugh at me as I'm trying to thread a needle on a live stream here. Yeah, I'll cut off that end to get a little bit of cleaner look to it there. This is nothing like that thread that I was dealing with on that one live stream that was just so difficult to work with, wasn't it? What I'm going to do to hedge my bet is I've got patterns 1, 5, 7. I want to do pattern 7 first, 5 first, and then we'll do pattern 1 last. And that way I can determine whether or not it might be an issue with an adjustment that I've got to make on this machine for that pattern. There's only so much adjusting you can do on these Japanese machines because the reader finger is going to do exactly what those bumps on the cam stack tell it to do. I'm guessing it was probably a stitch length issue. I'm suspecting. And again, the reason I don't generally use a size 80 like this is they're not quite as strong for some of the sewing that I do. Isn't that a hoot, though? Let's go ahead and get this one out. Yeah, that just snapped right near the end, too. Right near the end. Okay. Let's give this a go again. And again, I'm gonna go ahead and try a different pattern first, just to eliminate the possibility that there's an issue with pattern 1 for some reason that I need to look at. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna change it to pattern 7 off camera. Bear with me for a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is pattern 7. We'll do pattern 7 and 5, and we'll do pattern 1 last. If the needle breaks again, then I know it's an adjustment issue. But there's only so much adjusting I can do on these Japanese machines, unfortunately. We're going to have the start of that other pattern at the beginning of it, so it's going to look a little funny on top there. Check that. Clear. Okay. Pattern 7. Move that reader finger in. I adjusted my stitch length back a little bit. Certain patterns are going to be a little bit more sensitive if you try to make that stitch length too short. So I just adjusted it back to the original setting. So we'll see if that helps on when we get back to pattern 1. All right, here we go. That's an interesting one. And as the mechanics of the machine are working on top, you'll hear different clicks and sounds, and that's almost like the 130-6s with the coffee grinder. It's just part of the mechanics of the machine. There's nothing you can really do about that. That's just the way they were designed. So this is pattern 7 that we just did, minus the beginning of pattern 1 right there where we had the needle break. And this is an interesting one too, isn't it? Very, very interesting pattern. Very cool. I like it. There's our lock stitch on the back. That's kind of scary right there. It almost looks like we had a thread feed. No, I'm wrong. I thought we had a thread feed issue or something like that, but that was just the thread kind of running over from one side to the other when I ended up cutting it to get that needle out of there. Yeah. Oh, let me shut that light off again. Oops. That messes the camera up. It's harder to see, isn't it? So this is pattern 7. I don't remember who picks pattern 7. But that's really cool. It almost looks like a little bridge in the middle of there, doesn't it? And again, the technology of the machines, the Japanese machines back in this time period, you're dealing with basic stitch needle movement is what's generating all these stitches. There's nothing else really in the mix of that. It's taking a zigzag pattern and it's manipulating that zigzag pattern to do all of this amazing stitching that you're seeing right here. It's quite amazing, I think, quite spectacular. So that again is our lock stitch. and then our top stitch. Yeah, really cool. All right, now we're going to go backwards, and we're going to do pattern 5. Pattern 5 next. So what I'm going to do, let me get this back into place. Okay, pattern 5. So again, when I'm changing patterns, I'm going to go ahead and retract that finger first, turning it from 0 all the way to 5, unlocking it. And pattern 5 is going to be, let me count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Looks like this one over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, this should be pattern 5. I'm going to show you from the front. Hopefully that's the correct one. That's pattern 5 based on the way I'm counting them. Okay, so we picked pattern 5. Now I'm going to go ahead and lock that in place. Push this to the side. It's locked in place. Go and rotate our stitch width from 5 down to 0, so it's reading that cam. I'm going to leave the stitch length a little bit longer just in case that was the problem that created the issue with that other stitch that we did when we broke the needle. Okay, so the next pattern we're doing, at least on the way we're counting them, is going to be pattern number 5. We'll see what we think of this one. And again, that's part of the mechanics making that sound up there. They are a little bit noisier, aren't they? There we go. Yeah, that almost looks similar to that other pattern we did that we were calling the bugle pattern, doesn't it? That looks very similar to the bugle pattern. Number 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, looks really, really similar to the bugle pattern. It's amazing what you can, when you engineer a machine to manipulate a zigzag, it's quite impressive what the machine is capable of generating, isn't it? Very, very impressive. Okay, get that one back. All right, checking my orientation. This is the one we just did. Almost looks like a bugle pattern, sort of, to me. Just kind of looking at the laptop now so I can see. Yeah, it's got a little bit more elongation in between the stitch clusters. But it's similar. It's similar to this row right over here, isn't it? And again, you can see the similarities where here they've got a tighter span between the stitch patterns right here. And here they basically elongated it with a very, very tiny, looks almost like a straight stitch, doesn't it? That the machine is generating. So this pattern and this pattern share a lot of commonality, don't they? Those two. Yeah, kind of cool. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over. Look at that lock stitch. And again, no difference. I always say if you can stitch a pattern and it's almost impossible to distinguish the top from the lock stitch, then that upper tension that I showed you guys in that other live stream just a day or so ago, I showed you that live stream of how to clean this upper tension, this unit right here. We had it all torn apart. And yes, that's the one I dropped. Yes, Dr. Singer, that is the one I dropped. And so yeah, you can see it's able to manage things very, very nicely, isn't it? And generate a very beautiful balance between the top and the lock. And the lock stitch is always going to be a little bit more challenging to generate because it's pulling that thread back up through the material, isn't it? Yeah, quite extraordinary. But here again, you can see where if the technology had been available to have that an extra little wheel to start right at the beginning of the stitch pattern, we wouldn't have this little tag right here where it was starting, it was basically getting at that point where it was starting in the middle of the stitch patterns. But still, it doesn't matter. I mean, it's laying down some incredible stitching all the way through this field of stitches. The only thing that makes me a little bit nervous is if I stitch that pattern 1 again, obviously going through my service process, I look at the cam stack and I examine the cam stack, I service it, I adjust it, I clean it. But if there is an imperfection, because plastic and Teflon over time can wear, it can get warped, it can get damaged in other ways. If there is an anomaly for pattern 1 that we sewed that ended up breaking the needle, if there is an anomaly on that cam stack, then we're going to get the same result the second time. So we'll have to wait and see. I don't know what's going to happen because, again, under close examination, the cam stack can look fine, but as that cam stack is turning and that reader finger is telling that machine what to do and very rapidly manipulating that needle movement, we could have a similar result. So we'll see. And again, there's only so much you can do in adjusting for that. So we'll have to wait and see if we get the same result. Hopefully we don't. And it was just an anomaly, which happens sometimes, doesn't it? Okay, so now we're going to go to that faded stitch number 1. And we'll see what we get. I'm going to go ahead and retract our reader finger first. Unlock it. Go all the way back. And this is the one that gave us trouble right there. This particular pattern is pattern number 1. And again, I'm hoping that there's not a flaw in the cam stack because getting a cam stack replacement for one of these machines will be virtually impossible. Virtually impossible. Hopefully it was just an anomaly. So I've selected that stitch. I'm going to lock it in place. Go ahead and move our reader finger back to 0, excuse me. Move it back to 0. All right. And what I may try doing, if you'll humor me, what I may try doing real quick is I may hand turn off some of these just to see if we get any anomaly before I apply power. And what I mean is I'm going to be turning it with the balance wheel manually instead of powering it up straight away, just to see if I can see anything happening with that needle swing that's problematic that could result in another needle break. All right, so we're going to turn it we're going to be manual for a second here, just so I can, and this is always a good thing to do if you have a needle break with a certain pattern on one of your machines. It can either be a Japanese machine like this, or it can certainly be any other machine, is when you go back, you replace that needle, you go back to trying to sew that stitch again, instead of applying power straight away, try turning that balance wheel, and then you can see as that cam stack or your computer board or whatever is telling that needle what to do. You can see whether or not there's something problematic happening before you apply power. So let's give that a go right now. I'm going to check my threading and everything else to make sure we look like we're good. I'm going to go ahead and turn this by hand. Somebody's really determined to reach me. I'm saying little or no feed dog movement, even though I lengthened it a little bit. 1 second. Now I'm seeing some feed dog movement. There may be an issue with this one. Let's see what we get. I'm going to turn it a couple more times. There, it just changed direction. So I think we might have a flaw. I'm going to stop there until I can take a closer look at that part, that region of the cam stack. We're starting to get a pattern generated, but it doesn't seem to be advancing with that pattern as it should. So I'll have to take a closer look at that. So pattern 1 for right now, Erin, I would say I'll take a look at it. If it is a flaw in the cam stack that can't be easily resolved, then I would say we're just going to have to stay away from pattern 1 on this machine. But I'm going to see if I can figure out a solution to it before the machine is shipped back to you in Vermont. But that happens with machines, especially when you're dealing with cam stacks that are made out of a Teflon plastic material. They can get warped, and other factors can happen that can cause issues with certain patterns. Certain patterns will get kind of wonky donkey. Okay. Let's see if there's one more I can pick that we haven't done yet. I don't know if we've done 10. I don't think we did 10. Let's see if I can do this one real quick. I don't think we'd done 10. I think the 10, yeah, I don't think we had done 10 before. Yeah, I like the look of that one. That's a good looking stitch too, isn't it? Okay, what is our runtime right now? Oh my gosh, we are over 3 hours right now, you guys. This is the last pattern I did right here. It's pattern number 10 as far as, and ignore this. This is where I was trying to do pattern 1 as we're counting it, and it's just not reacting properly, which again, it's getting its information. It's like the cam stack is like the computer board, for the machine. So I'll take a closer look at it, but if it's giving bad information to the needle on what to do, that could explain why we're getting those issues with that pattern. But focusing on pattern 11, or pattern 10 rather, Very, very cool pattern. We had not done that one before. Pattern 10 is going to be similar to this row right here, but it has just a slightly different look, doesn't it? Yeah, this one and that one have some commonality to them. Yeah, I'm really curious about that now. And usually when I'm testing a machine like this, when it has a cam stack, I don't necessarily always sew prior to the live. I don't sew every single stitch usually. If it's generating good stitch output on the cams, then that's usually an indication, unless there's a flaw in the cam stack, that the other cams will function perfectly as well. And we had great success today with all of them, except for that stitch number 1. So I'll have to take a closer look at that. But these are the results we've gotten today during this live stream, which are quite exceptional. Then we also sewed that protected full grain leather at the beginning and got some great results on straight stitching that as well. I think because of our time, what I could do is I could try doing a zigzag down that protected full grain leather as well. And then we'll kind of wrap this up, and that'll give me a chance to take a closer. There we go. What's going on with the camera right now? There we go. Take a closer look at that position 1 on the cam stack to see if there might be some sort of an issue going on with it. Yeah, beautiful stitching. This is our lock stitch on the back. Beautiful stitching there as well. Lovely, lovely stitching. There, it's coming into focus. Yeah, I think mechanical does trump computer, doesn't it? I think it generally does. So some beautiful stitch outcomes here. I think what I'll do real quick, again, just to wrap this up for sake of time, is we'll go back to our protective full grain leather. I could try to do 2 layers, but again, with a size 80 needle, I'm not going to go crazy. So I'm going to go ahead and move this back into position. Now we need to go back to our utility stitching. I'm going to move that over there. Get that down. But yeah, I'm really pleased with what we were able to do on this live stream today. Other than running into a little bit of a snag with the cam stitch pattern number 1, which I can take a closer look at, we had some great success with this 1940s Dressmaker model SAMB. So I'm going to throw this to the side and we'll try generating a zigzag down this protected full grain leather. Who knows, maybe I'll even lay down a quick decorative stitch on here as well, just to demonstrate that with a single layer of protected full grain leather, you can do some pretty crazy stuff, even with a lighter gauge needle. So let me move us back to our default first. I've got to unlock this. Oops, actually, I did that wrong. See? I'm getting distracted. I did it wrong. Let's rotate this first of all to retract that finger from cam. Then we can unlock it so that we can adjust this dial here for stitches. And now we need to go back to the default all the way over to here, to this stitch pattern right here. This stitch pattern right here, again, I think it would have been better if they had done a little zigzag and a straight stitch type pattern on here to signify that this is your default for utility stitching, but they didn't do that. They just gave us a real tight, almost looks like a mending stitch, doesn't it? Almost looks like a mending stitch. And then what we have to do is we have to go over to our stitch width, and we have to decide how wide do we want that zigzag to be. Right now we're on 5, probably put it like on 4. I think we did a 3x3 before. Now we'll do a 4x4. I'll go ahead and adjust our stitch length over here to 4 as well. There we go. Okay, so we got 4 in our stitch length. We've got 4 in our stitch width. We've changed the selector back to the default for straight and zigzag. So now we're going to try to lay down a zigzag on this protected full grain leather. There we go. The camera's a little bit sluggish today. Maybe it's because of the cold weather. I don't have the heater running down here right now in the workshop, and I'm guessing if I were to check to see what the general ambient temperature is right now. Matter of fact, you know what I'll do? I'll check the machine surface to see what temperature we get from the machine. You'll see the little laser pop up. So it is a little cool in here right now. Right now, the temperature on the machine, and certainly it's metal, is coming in at about 60.5 degrees, 60.6 degrees. So it's only about 60 degrees in the workshop right now. It's only about 60 degrees. That's kind of cool. I probably should turn my heater on. And sewing machines don't like the cold either, do they? So if you're working in a sewing space and that room is, is cooler, in the 60 degree mark, certain things about that machine, it might have a little bit more trouble. It might have a little bit more trouble. Okay, let me double check everything. Take up arm is up. Let's lay down a zigzag. And I don't know, maybe I'll get adventurous and lay down a decorative type stitch on here as well. And I don't have much to hold on to here, do I? I have to keep that real still so I don't get my finger in there. All right, here we go. All right. So there's our zigzag that we just laid down. Beautiful zigzag. And I like the balance on this zigzag. The 3x3 looked like it was a little bit, out of balance. The 4x4 is quite nice. I like that a lot. Beautiful balance on that stitch. Quite nice. Turn it over, look at the lock stitch. Really no difference at all. It's a beautiful lock stitch. Again, depending on the material that you're sewing with, the type of needle you're sewing with. Again, we're sewing with a universal needle that is not really, it can handle leather, but, it's not the perfect tool to be using when you're sewing leather. A leather needle would be much better. And all in all, we're getting a really good result with this protected full grain leather. This, again, is a machine that comes with a 1.5 amp motor, so it's capable of doing a lot more heavy-duty sewing. But again, with us running 3 hours and 24 minutes already, we need to wrap this up. And that'll give me a chance to troubleshoot that stitch number 1 to see if it's something that we can resolve or whether or not it's just going to be one of those things because of an issue with the cam stack that cannot be readily resolved without a major repair and trying to source the part as well. So anyway, what we've done on this live stream, I'll just kind of capstone it real quick here. Yeah, we'll go like that. We've had a chance to see Erin Allan's antique store rescue machine that came with all kinds of challenges and obstacles and issues. Really doing an excellent job during this live stream today. Everything from the straight stitching to the zigzag. Again, I'm a bigger fan of not this zigzag over here, this 3x3, but this 4x4 that we did on the protected full grain leather. And then with your input, we went through a series of different stitches that are being generated by this 1940s dressmaker SAMB. And it's doing all of this by the manipulation of what in essence at the baseline is a zigzag stitch. It's quite extraordinary, isn't it? With a needle movement, it's using a basic zigzag to generate everything that we did along these lines. So with that, I'm going to put on a little bit of music. I hope these new speakers will make it a little bit easier to hear. And I'm going to let you wrap up your conversations. And again, thank you so much for taking valuable time on a Saturday to join to celebrate this rescue of this 1940s dressmaker model SAMB that Erin found at an antique shop, and arrived with so many challenges, issues that had to be resolved, and now it's sewing a beautiful, beautiful stitch. And I don't know exactly what Erin is going to use this machine for potentially, but so many options now that it's been pulled out of the ashes. Again, it would have been one of those machines that potentially ended up in a dumpster if it were at a Goodwill, a Saint Vincent de Paul's, or the equivalent type thrift shop. So thank you to Erin for rescuing this machine and sending it all the way to the workshop so I could try to pour as much workshop magic into this machine as I possibly could to get it stitching just off the charts. Doing a beautiful job. So enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you at the next live stream. I'm trying to decide what I'm going to present as far as the machines that I'm finishing right now. So God bless. Take care. Have a great day. And again, if you happen to encounter a needle break on one of your machines, when you go back to that stitch pattern, always hand turn it first, as we did there, to try to determine what the issue is and try to avoid another needle strike, that could break in the sewing process. I have little or no sleep, so I better end now while I still sound semi intelligent and understandable, and have a great rest of the day. And thank you again to the moderating team for dealing with the porno people that obviously are trying to infiltrate our forum here. And appreciate your service there and your intervention. And take care, everybody. And again, if you are one of the leaders that did not have a reel done on Facebook where I incorporated music and some animation, send me your picture and I'll be glad to put one together for you as well. Okay? Take care. God bless. All right, folks, take care. Have a great rest of your weekend, and God bless. Um, I don't know what the next live stream will be. Maybe I'll get another machine arrive and we'll do an unboxing, or I might present this Swedish beauty that kept me up until 1 o'clock in the morning last night in resolving issues on her. So we'll see. Take care, everybody. And I'll end the live stream, and then the chat will stay active for a little bit before it times out. All right. And thanks again to all the leaders. Thank you so much. And take care. Bye. Oh, and I am remiss. And thank you again to Erin Allan for the two machines you've sent to the workshop, the Husqvarna 21E, and then also this spectacular post-World War II Japanese Dressmaker. Great machines. And let's keep on rescuing machines, everybody, okay? Take care. Yeah, maybe I'll put on one more song.